Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. Now, see, I gave you all a 5-minute warning, but part of the reason that we're here is so that you can speak with each other, and I'm going to just say this is awesome. If there's any reason to be delayed, you all being in conversation with each other is a perfect reason for that. Good morning. My name is Liz Baxter. I'm the CEO here at North Sound Accountable Community of Health, or North Sound ACH. And we didn't have a clue as COVID hit, like how many people were actually going to be here in the room. So just incredibly grateful to you all. And we are going to be asking you to wear your masks today. Partly, Swinomish announced that it was reverting back to its COVID protocols. We also just have folks in the room who are either have compromised systems or old, like me, that, you know, we've got a couple of babies on their way. And we just want to make sure that this is not just about, like, will you catch something? This is so that we can prevent the spread of COVID and not have another surge as we've had in the past. We do have, just really grateful, we've got interpreter services here. And so Irene, if you want to stand, raise your hand. And Marco, I'm hoping you're somewhere close by that you're going to come up and say this, but we do have some headsets available for anybody who would like to have that service available. And Marco's going to just repeat this in Spanish so that everybody can hear that.
Hola, buenos días. Para las personas que ocupan un intérprete, tenemos un intérprete allá, también con los audífonos y su micrófono. Por favor, si se quieren acercar a mí o acercarse a la mesa que está allá con la señora, ahí está para cualquier persona que ocupe un intérprete hoy en día. Muchas gracias.
We do have a resource table that's up here, and so if any of you have brought resources from your organization, just come on up. You can just leave them up here at any time during the day. And, you know, really, we're just grateful. We have a lot of new folks on our team, and so we tried to be a little bit coordinated. So you'll know our team because we're walking around with these little North Sound ACH things on. There's a big octopus in the back if you're seeing us from behind. And just grab anybody on our team if you've got any questions, with one caveat, and that's that about half of our team are like 3 months or younger on our team. So they're here to learn as much as you are. And, you know, just don't feel bad if they say, yeah, I can't answer that, but I'll go find somebody that can, because that's part of why they're here as well. But I want to start with our land acknowledgement, and then I'm going to invite Michael Vendiola up here from Swinomish. But we use this to start all of our meetings, whether we're talking big meetings like this, our internal staff meetings, our team meetings, our board meetings, really wanting to just acknowledge the space that we're in, this very special space here in the North Sound region. So we begin by acknowledging with humility that the land where we are today is the territory of the people of the Salish Sea. Their presence is imbued in the waterline, waterways, shorelines, valleys, and mountains of the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people since time immemorial. And the since time immemorial is a really important part as well. And so I hope that you will go to the link that's there, check in, go to some of the activities that we all get invited to from the tribes in the region. You know, we have a very rich place that we all get to call home and do our work, and hope that you'll take advantage of this invitation that is always there from our tribal partners to learn more and to do work with them. So, Michael, I'm going to ask you to come up.
Can we give Liz a big round of applause? Thank you so much for convening this today. Right off the bat, we got to do that. I had my long, dramatic stroll up here, so it was a big build-up. It's really not that serious. I'm just here to share a few words, but I'm recognizing the cedar hats in the room. I see one over here. Oh, are you Hawaiian? No. Oh, okay. I was going to say, my dad's from Hawaii too, so where are you from? Salish. All right. Well, neighbors. So, yeah, my name is Danisitan. That's my ancestral name, and I'll share a little bit about that. as well as my birth name is Michael Vendiola, and I'm a Swinomish Indian tribal community member. And I also work here as the education director for my tribe. And I was asked to come do a welcome for you all, and I'm just scanning the room while I'm talking, so my apologies if I'm a little bit scattered, because I like to get to know each of you and you know, a little bit about who you are. And I'm really thankful that the organization North Sound ACH takes a little bit of time to, one, do the land acknowledgements, and two, to welcome in the local tribe that is doing this work. And we have Samish here as well. You know, we share this territory. And but I wanted to first say that you know, I got the email invitation, and then I said, oh yeah, I'll be there. I'll share a few words of welcome. And then I'm not sure who was the other person on our email besides Michaela? Huh? Meg? Where's Meg at? Meg's not in here. Oh, hi, Meg. Meg emailed back and said, oh, we have you on the schedule for 30 minutes, but you can talk as long as you want. So that's what I intend to do. And you guys are 10 minutes into my time, so I have to go a little bit longer. But you know, if you spent time around Indian country and gotten beyond, you know, the gaming aspects of our tribe and the you know, the kind of the you know, the stereotypes of dramatic, tragic, and you know, downtrodden Native people, or gotten beyond not even existing, or gotten beyond learning about us from a pre-1900 context in your K through 12 education system, which is still currently the outlook. If you spend time around Indian country, you begin to learn that we love to talk, we love to visit, and we love to share. And so I'm really honored to be here today. Just to try to, you know, it's really nice that I'm at the beginning, because I'm going to try to share a few words to kind of motivate you for the work that you're going to do today, which is really about coming together and building, you know, healthcare systems and communities that strengthen our people. So I'm thankful for that, to be invited and be first to talk. And I wanted to share, before I say a little bit about who I am and where I come from, as I was reading the website, the North Sound ACH website, here's like right on the front page, you probably have this memorized, right? Just kidding. North Sound Accountable Community of Health, North Sound ACH, is an independent nonprofit organization committed to building vibrant and healthy communities, places where all can live full lives. We convene diverse individuals and organizations to foster meaningful community-led collaboration leading to equitable well-being, fewer people suffering and struggling, and more people thriving. That's a good goal. It's a tremendous goal, and well written. And I read thriving this morning, and I almost drove off the road as I was reading that, because we have the same goals. I see my cousin. Is that my cousin Dara? I can't tell with your. He's got a mask on, so I really gotta watch myself now, because it's gonna go back. At any rate, I almost drove off the road because thriving was the theme for my birthday, and I turned 55 this year, and my theme for my party that I organized myself, I threw myself a party, and the theme was thrive for the next 55. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I enjoyed it. So we have some common goals, and I appreciate reading that on the website, and I hope that you all can really get engaged with doing that. To really, I can't say enough. I kind of dipped into it a little bit, but the viewpoint of our Native communities, and I'm really happy that my cousin is here because he's made it his life's work to tell the story of our Native people and highlight the positives and the knowledge and the ancestry. I appreciate the since time immemorial recognition because we have been here since the beginning of time. And those are things that aren't very acknowledged in groups like this. You go to conferences and whatnot, there's Native people, usually around those areas, and they're not acknowledged, and they're not brought in, and they're not asked to say a welcome. And so, thriving, we have academics in, the pre-2000s that wrote about survivance. And then a gentleman, a scholar by the name of Gerald Visner wrote a book about thrivance, right? And it totally flipped the mindset that of where we are as Native people. We're not survivants anymore. We're thriving. We're thrivants. We're trying to thrive for our next generations, our young people. And so, I guess that's part of why I'm here today is to say a little bit about that and just acknowledge our Swinomish people, our Samish people, our Lummi people, Upper Skagit. And we are here on this reservation. You're on reservation land, which was a result of our signing a treaty with the United States government in 1855, and where we as Coast Salish people agreed to move from the San Juan Islands to the Lower Skagit to Whidbey Island and to this area now. Onto this reservation. So that in itself is a big acknowledgement to recognize that this is Coast Salish territory, and we agreed to give that up under that agreement. And so, and one thing I also want to acknowledge that this is where I grew up on March Point. So if you continue to drive along the water here, you run into March Point Road, and there now are a lot of refineries, oil refineries. But that land also was a part of our original Treaty of 1855 reservation. And some years later, President Grant took, by executive order, the northern part of our reservation. And so if you study law, now it's time for our legal clinic. But we as a tribe, do not believe that was taken by legal means. And, according to our treaty, the highest law, our constitution, the highest law of the land is a treaty and can only be revised by Congress. And so a president doesn't have the unilateral ability to take land. So I wanted to acknowledge that because I did grow up there. And we're right on the edge of that, and we have issues like railroads, the oil. Some of you might have heard about the railroad accident we had recently, right behind here, really close. That could have been a lot more tragic. So this is getting into a lot more than a welcome, but it's my 101 lecture from Swinomish, and I appreciate the time, and I wanted to acknowledge my name, Don Easterton. It's a second generation name from my mother, one of the Indian names my mother carries. Her name is Donicia, and she carries another name of Hugalitsa. And Hugalitsa is a family name, an ancestral name. And Hugalitsa was the brother or sister to, his brother was Charlie Belote. And Belote was a Treaty of 1855 signer. So that's how close, that's how we think about this land, how we sacrificed and how we gave it up. And it's important to really think about the water, and I really like the land acknowledgement, acknowledging the water, because that's, was our original highway, our original ways of going out to visit. And it was also one of our main food sources, which is, our elders say when the tide is out, the table is set. So that's how we were subsistence. So I'm trying to just share, in the hour and a half lecture that I'm giving today, a little bit about who we are and where we come from. And I'm physically from this place right here, and my ancestors are as well. And really appreciate just having a little bit of time to talk with you and hopefully raise you up. Raise you up. We say in our community, stand you up to do the work that you're doing, for the communities. Our tribal communities, all of our other underrepresented communities that need that care, need that support and the work that you're doing. I hope today is the day. Sometimes we go to these conferences, they're like a respite, get a chance to get out of the office and rejuvenate and see people you only see on Zoom or on the phone, and be able to see each other face to face is really important. And I hope those vibes, come forward and work for you. So I'll just close. I'm going to end 10 minutes early, Liz, if that's okay. But I'm going to close with a prayer. So if everybody can please stand and please pray in your own way. I just wanted to open with a prayer. That's what we usually do. And 55 is the year that our tribe, my tribe, acknowledges our eldership. And so coming with that, raise your hand if you're over 55. I don't mean to out you or anything, but I'm proud of it myself. But, do you feel like an elder? I turned 55. I didn't feel like an elder, but I'm trying to do my best. Creator, grandfather, grandmother, be with us today. Just thank you for this beautiful day already. And I want to say a special prayer for this group in this room. We want to just thank them for coming together for a mission. Just asking you to put your hands down on them and support them, stand them up, and help them in the work that they're going to do today and moving forward. We want to pray for our elders, Creator, our beautiful ones that give us light and guidance and vision. And we just think of them today, all of the ones that are in our lives and the ones that we caretake over. And Creator, we just want to pray for our number one reason why we're here, our young ones, the ones who will carry on our traditions, our work, our ways of knowing, and help us be responsible for them. Help our work guide us to help them and lift them up. Have a good gathering. I'm going to stick around for a little bit, but. Yeah.
So we had some goals for today, and in a little bit you're going to get to see a video that's a bit of a reminder of where we were in January. But really this is about you. Like, we don't have presentations about, like, here's what the ACH is doing, here's what's grounding us. This is really about you to be able to explore the work that you're doing, whether you're doing it, uniquely, you're doing it in partnership with other people here in the room or some folks who couldn't be here in the room. We're going to have a session kind of to start us between now and lunch where we're going to celebrate some of the work that some of our partners have been involved with, so that's going to be pretty exciting. We're going to spend a lot of this day with you all generating some ideas, like what should we be focused on? Like, how do we spend the next dollar that comes into space that we could be doing some creative work around? But really this is about you all getting to be with each other. So you're going to see like lots of pieces of this day, including from 4:30 to 5:30, where we just created some time for you to be able to interact, network, if I want to use the buzzword, to network with each other. Because it's one of the things that we hear as feedback when we do our other sessions is it's like so jam-packed full, you don't actually have time to just like be in conversation. So that's part of what we're doing today. So we have some working agreements, and you all just probably have way better eyesight than I do about being able to read those things up there. But these working agreements actually came from partners. They were designed by partners. They have been refined over the last 6 years by partners. And they are things like spreading kindness, being courageous as you're having conversations, to allow some space for being uncomfortable. Things are going to come up where you might not know how to respond. You just might not know what to say as some issues come up. And just to know that you're in a room where that's okay to do that, and that we'll all try and work our way through that. And then really it's like, we don't have the answers, but we have a lot of questions. So you've now, any one of you have about 150 people that you can ask a question of and try and get some input, some insights along the way. I don't know why I keep hitting. And so this is a quote, and I'm actually wondering if there's anybody else besides me who might want to read this. Can I just point, Keiko, would you mind? You know, there's some folks that we have been looking at their work, and this book, The Art of Gathering, is a book that our team shared about 1.5 years ago. And so this is a quote from that. Thanks.
Why do we gather? We gather to solve problems we can't solve on our own. We gather to celebrate, to mourn, and to mark transitions. We gather to make decisions. We gather because we need one another. We gather to show strength. We gather to honor and acknowledge. We gather to build companies and schools and neighborhoods.
Thank you. And some of you may know Keiko. She just joined our team fairly recently, and we're excited to have her there. So we're going to share a video with you. We have just been so enriched, is probably a good word, with our partnership with Children of the Setting Sun. Whoops. And through that, we were introduced to Jordan, who was here, but his dad, John Reiber. And so John took, I don't know, like 6,000 hours of footage that has been recorded and provided us with just a reflection back on our time together in January. So that's what you're going to get to see right now. The thing that we did differently was to invest in relationship building. We have partnerships that would never have occurred 5 years ago. We have hospitals caring about housing, community organizations trying to get more affordable food. We see folks getting engaged in issues that are about other things that aren't about what they're being paid for. Those kinds of changes sound small, but they're kind of radical. I am supposed to get us started with like, why are we here? But I have to tell you, the last 30 minutes is part of why we're here. It is about you all intersecting with each other, and we're just gonna be shepherding to help make those kinds of interactions occur.
When I found North Sound ACH, it was really exciting to know that there were other people all connected together to try to figure out how to do this work together.
I am so grateful to be a part of the collaborative network, starting to look holistically at our health. It's providing opportunities for us to address the harms and the hearts of the past and move forward together.
We're going to consider our space together as an imaginarium. To simply imagine is in and of itself a radical act. And that's what you're being invited into.
We're gonna jump in, okay, to a little bit of an activity. Anyone here have 2 middle names? Hey, you're the winner, okay? Share your name. Where are you from? And who are those who came before you? Go ahead and share that now. Now, let me ask you a second question, y'all. How many of you have ever felt deja vu? Raise your hand high. Look around you, time travelers. Ha, 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 ha.
I look forward to that, to where we can collaborate in a way that we're learning from each other.
It's really satisfying to see how far we've been. And also, it's exciting to know how far we've got to go.
I'm inspired by people from different backgrounds coming together for a shared vision and a shared North Star.
I think the biggest gift Northtown ACH has given me is learning and challenging my mental flexibility.
My goal is to be the region where everyone feels a sense that they can belong. There's a lot that we could do if we weren't working separately, but we were working together.
Just pretty amazing for us to see that clip. So part of what we want to do is to just give you a chance to just meet somebody in the room that you don't already know. So we're going to take literally like about 5 minutes. We're asking you to find somebody you don't already know and talk about these 2 things. Like, what does it look like? What does it feel like to be in an authentic relationship with someone? And if you can share an example of something recently that gives you hope. We are surrounded by news that gives us reason to not be hopeful. So I want you to just think about something where you go like, that's what I want. That's where I'm hoping we can hear more of. So we are asking you to actually leave your chairs. Unless you're sitting next to somebody that you totally don't know, then you can stay. And we're gonna pull you back together in like 5 minutes and move forward. One. Oh, you all are awesome. So I probably shouldn't say this, but you know, like I raised 3 boys into adulthood, and I'm not used to like saying things and having people listen. That is not, it's not a reflection on all of the folks who were raised as boys, but it always gives me a thrill when people listen to what I say. Alrighty. So, this is the 6th year that we've done a summer convening. And each time we come together, we had like 3 magical years on Zoom. But it's really to try and figure out like, how do we get closer to having an ACH that actually listens to partners? And so we spent a pretty significant part of 2022. And can I just ask, how many people, is this like your first time in a room with us? All right. For those, how many of you were with us through 2022? All right, this is great. So in 2022, we had just finished a 5-year contract with the Washington Healthcare Authority. It was pretty prescriptive of the kind of work that the ACH could support. And we said, let's spend 2022 in cohorts. We wanted to end the year with partners telling us what we should focus on. We were messy. We were like not always on top of our game. But one of the things that came out of that was, how could we share decision-making power with partners? So at the end of the year, we put out an application to form a review committee. And that review committee came together, and that's really what you're going to hear about for the next hours as we head into lunch. But we took a test. I kind of think of it as a bit of a beta test of, could we actually give a group of people a pot of money, some kind of construct around that, and have partners submit ideas to this review committee. The review committee make decisions, and then my job literally is turn that into a contract and get money to those partners. And so NICA's going to be coming up and talking about this. It was a bit of a beta test for us. And have any of you ever do like beta tests with like the iOS systems or anything? Like, they're buggy. So this review committee came together and they awarded more than $4 million to partners. They are meeting with several of our staff to tell us, like, how could this be better? Because you're gonna hear, that we're gonna try and do this again. And so we're working on what is like version 1.5 look like after we finish this beta test. But it was pretty exciting to have partners hearing all the work that's happening across this region with other partners. So with that, NICA, I know you're close at hand. Oh, I'm going to turn this to you and let you carry us into the next spot.
Thank you, Liz. All right. Hi, everybody. Good morning. My name is Nika Osteen, and I am the Director of Innovation here at North Sound ACH. And it's really nice to see so many of you in person. I've met a lot of you over the last 5 years, and it's really great to be in space with folks. So over the last year, I had the honor of working with the review committee to review the projects that came out of that Imaginarium we talked about in January. And it was an incredible group of 11 folks who reviewed so many projects. We had an overwhelming number of people apply to be on the committee and just had a really amazing group of folks come together. And over the last 6 months, they approved 20 projects that span across the region, touch every county of our region, touch a really wide range of communities and ideas. And today, I wish we could share with you every single project because they are all amazing and really brilliant, and innovative and collaborative, and really focused on the communities that they serve and including community voice. But we only have time for 3 of them today, unfortunately. So I'm going to invite our partners from 3 of the projects to share with you briefly, and hopefully that'll help inspire you to think about your own collaborative, innovative ideas for projects. And these projects range from things that are early planning stages to things that have been implemented for several years and are wanting to expand. But I want to start by inviting up Sam from the Madrona Institute. And Sam is leading a project with Lopez Island Family Resource Center called the Indigenous Heritage Project.
Aitsquile McQuiet, Sambar, Sunasnat, Chus Emerson, CM, Equcha, Aquanas Quilnewell. So, hello everybody, my name is Sam. I come from the Samish tribe, and I'm welcoming you all to my talk. Glad we're all here together. I'm the program director for the Coast Salish Youth Coalition, and we are an intertribal coalition of youth from tribes who have ancestry to the San Juan Islands, and we engage in environmental stewardship, but the same kind of environmental stewardship that our ancestors would have been doing for the past 10,000 years. So we don't just do trail maintenance in national parks for tourists, we steward traditional foodscapes that have sustained our people and medicines since time immemorial, as we've been talking about today. And why did we start this program? There are lots of tribal youth programs, but there are few intertribal youth programs. Each tribe has their own programs for their own youth, but I've seen in my experience that there's not a lot of programs that are really built specifically around getting youth from multiple tribes together with one goal. And so I started this effort with my partner under a nonprofit so that it would not be tied to any one tribe. It puts me in a more neutral space where I can reach out to each tribe as sort of a level partner. And I've also experienced this myself, as that there's a need for culturally relevant employment opportunities for tribal youth. At the start of our program, we started by forming an advisory coalition from multiple tribes. So we have a board of directors, you might say, that's made up of cultural leaders and a variety of the tribes from around this region. And we try to build relationships around shared culture. And that shared culture is food, environmental stewardship, and canoes, which are all central to our programming. One of the things that we do is we practice traditional foods, revitalization, and stewardship. Some of the challenges that we manage in a program like this is avoiding politics between tribes. This is a really youth-focused, culturally focused thing, and we try to build allyship together and keep anything else out of it. And a lot of that means building trust and respecting individuality. A lot of these youth are forming relationships with each other. A lot of these tribes have long relationships with each other. And trust always has to be part of those relationships. And also, in an intertribal program like this, we want to be together, but we also want to respect that each tribe is an individual tribe and has their own individual history. And so just managing that and making sure that everyone feels like they can be themselves and be respected. And some things that we would tell ourselves at the start of the program is to focus more on whole family activities. At the start, it was youth focused, but we only recruited youth. And that doesn't really work in tribal culture. It really has to be intergenerational. And so we've really expanded the program. And now we have events that include 3-year-olds all the way up to 80-year-olds, and it's so much more powerful that way. Also, maybe kind of managing expectations, not setting too big of goals too soon, just finding ways to work towards goals. One of our big ones is to do this environmental stewardship by canoe, so without any cars in the San Juan Islands. And that's a goal that we're slowly getting close to, and we're almost there. I think next year we're gonna be there. We're gonna start restoring traditional foodscapes and landscapes without arriving with a single car. And things that we look for in partners, one is having staff that's supportive. A lot of times we rely on staff and partnering organizations to help fill the gaps, volunteer roles. Also, it's really great to find grants that we can partner on where both organizations are really finding a way to benefit from the partnership with aligning deliverables. And then, of course, inclusion is a big part of our program, and so finding partners that are also really interested in cross-cultural inclusion, not only just intertribal, but also with tribal and non-tribal folks as well as we build this home together. And then I have a video. I'm going to try to make it work.
Hello, my name is Aurora Martinez. My traditional name is Squamai Ishwat, and I come from the Samashandian Nation. A long time ago, before the pandemic, Sambar and I discussed our goals and our dreams for the future in the San Juan Islands. The hope to grow Indigenous presence and educate those who live in the islands about the Indigenous history. This goal led us to find partners, and we quickly found a great partnership with the Lopez Island Family Resource Center. 30% of the youth who are served by the Family Resource Center have Indigenous heritage but have been disconnected from their culture. North Sound ACH, though, was a funder who provided an immediate space to recraft how Indigenous leadership is valued. They allowed for connection and never questioned why we believe these projects are so important. North Sound ACH has encouraged us at the Family Resource Center and Madrona Institute to dream big and work together for a better future. Thank you to the North Sound ACH for all the work that you do and all the work that I know you will continue to support us in our future as we build towards this better goal.
And so the next step for our small nonprofit, the Coast Salish Youth Coalition, is to grow into a separate, truly Native-led organization, and we're going to do that by entering into a fiscal sponsorship with the Madrona Institute. But for now, we're still under the Madrona Institute, and you can check out their website And soon we're going to have our own website and our new social media presence. And we're going to continue to host culturally meaningful events for intertribal youth. And so, thank you.
Thank you, Sam. All of these folks are here, so if you have any questions about their projects or want to connect with them, or if you have great ideas, please find them throughout the day. All right, so next I want to welcome Allison and Michelle from the Whatcom County Perinatal Mental Health Task Force, and they are going to share about their project, the Mobile Mama Clinical Counseling Internship Pilot.
Welcome, and I want to thank the Swinomish people for their hospitality today and letting us be here in this space, and the ACH for letting us share our internship project. I'm Allison Williams. I work for the Whatcom County Health and Community Services Department on programs focusing on young families and their children through pregnancy and early parenthood. And I'm also one of the founding members of the Whatcom Perinatal Mental Health Task Force, which is a community collaborative that supports this project.
And I'm Michelle Anderson. I run and own Mobile Mama. We are a group practice in Bellingham. We work with moms from conception through motherhood. I'm also a co-founder of the Whatcom Perinatal Mental Health Task Force, and I teach and train for Perinatal Support Washington.
You may hear us use a few unfamiliar terms. Perinatal is probably the first one today, and we'll define them as they come up. It's typically defined as the time between pregnancy and the first year postpartum. However, our task force defines it more expansively as up to 3 years postpartum, knowing that perinatal mental health concerns often go unaddressed in that first year and may surface later. So our task force was founded in 2017 and grew out of the desire for all Whatcom parents to have access to informed quality support for each and every pregnancy and parenting experience, knowing that parenting is overwhelming and isolating even in the best of times. Shaped by the passion of parents with lived experience and by the professionals who care for them in this tender time, we've worked to raise awareness, train professionals, and build a robust support work for new parents. We've had steady support from the Washington Department of Children, Youth, and Families and Perinatal Support Washington. And once we became a fiscally sponsored project of Whatcom Family and Community Network, it gave us many more opportunities to blend and braid funding, such as this opportunity to apply to the North Sound ACH. This project is an example of blending two funding sources from the Mount Baker Foundation and the North Sound ACH to support a single project around internship opportunities. And we had initially reached out to the Whatcom Behavioral Health Fund, funded by the 1/10 of 1% sales tax, but their timeline is not as nimble. And so we're hoping that this pilot project will fund proof of concept for applying for later funding through the Behavioral Health Fund. We use our mission of building a community standard of care to support parental and family well-being to achieve our vision that all families thrive during pregnancy and the transition to parenthood. And as a community, Whatcom County, those of you who are from Whatcom County will know that we've been focusing really intently on early childhood for more than a decade now. We know that children who have what they need to thrive in the early years, so Michael, if you are still here, yes, thriving is really important for us as well. That they have what they need to thrive in the early years are likely to continue to thrive throughout their lifetimes. And by directing our focus to supporting new parents before, during, and after pregnancy, we seize that earliest window of opportunity to help children reach their optimal development. So often abbreviated as PMADs, perinatal mood and anxiety disorders are the #1 complication of pregnancy and postpartum. Untreated PMAD symptoms can lead to poor outcomes for all members of the family. And we know that systemic racism and oppression continue to influence access, quality, and cultural appropriateness of care available to families, impacting their perinatal mental health. So these are our 4 guiding strategies of the task force. They operate as an ecosystem to develop our community standard of care. And on the ground, this looks like training professionals, creating bilingual resources for families and providers, parent peer support, and developing a coordinated referral pathway for families and providers. And just to give you an idea of what this looks like in Whatcom County, we have on average 2,000 births a year. We don't have good county level data about the number of birthing people experiencing perinatal mood disorders, but using national data, 15 to 20% of people, meaning 400 local parents, will likely experience some sort of mood and anxiety disorder. And despite the frequency of that, many may not be screened for this treatable condition, and typically only 15% will seek support for their symptoms. So this means 340 parents could go without the help that they need. And those rates can be much, much higher for parents of color and parents who are lower income. And these mood and anxiety disorders, they're treatable. Without treatment, this leaves so many parents without the care they need and diminishes the well-being of the entire family.
So as Allison said, of the 2,000 births in Whatcom County a year, roughly half of them, about 1,000 babies, are born to mothers on Medicaid. And so based on the national statistics, about 170 of these parents will likely experience a perinatal mood and anxiety disorder, and more will need support for what I call the normal but clunky transition to parenthood. And we know that it's difficult to find therapy in the best of circumstances. It's really hard to find therapists who take Medicaid, and it's super hard to find therapists who take Medicaid and are trained in perinatal mental health. So based on all of this information, our project vision and development focused on training additional therapists for Whatcom County, increasing the capacity for mothers to get the support that they need, especially those who are on Medicaid, seeking funding partners and collaborators, and connecting with the North Sound ACH. So with the help of the task force and our funders, Mobile Mama created a perinatal mental health clinical counseling internship program pilot. It's a mouthful. And so this program is to train, supervise, and support new therapists and increase capacity for mothers. The pilot was designed for 1 to 3 master's level interns per year to work with mothers in Whatcom County in person and via telehealth. And the clients were enrolled in Medicaid, but they received services pro bono. And the interns received a monthly stipend. So how did the first year go? It was totally awesome. We had one intern. She saw about 10 to 12 clients a week, over 270 sessions for the year. She referred over 100 Whatcom County potential clients to resources. Now she's an employee for Mobile Mama, and she's seeing up to 30 clients a week. And as one of her clients said, working with my Mobile Mama intern has changed my life for the better. I found someone caring and willing to hear my concerns and offer real helpful support. So this year, with the blended funding from the Mount Baker Foundation and the North Sound ACH, we're tripling the internship from 1 to 3 interns. This will allow up to 36 mothers a week to be supported, likely over 800 client sessions this year. And we're going to increase the amount of perinatal mental health trained providers in Whatcom County. And again, by supporting mothers, we're supporting our vision that all families thrive during pregnancy and through the transition of motherhood. And so what are some of the, I'm talking really fast at this point because I have like 1 second left, but what are some of the challenges and opportunities? So the academic year and the funding cycle were different, so that's a challenge that we're going to continue to work through. Outreach to universities and counseling programs has been mostly regional, like Bastyr, Seattle University, Antioch, and Western. So we want to increase the outreach so that we increase the applicant pool to better match the demographics of Whatcom County. And one of the wonderful outcomes was recognizing that not all applicants can afford an unpaid internship, so the grants have allowed for a monthly stipend, creating financial equity among the potential intern candidates. Last slide, promise. And so moving forward, our focus will continue to be trying to access therapists in languages other than English and training them, expanding Medicaid billing for supervised interns, and expanding the internship. And we just want to thank you for inviting us to share this totally amazing program, and thank you so much for the ACH for your support.
Thank you, Allison and Michelle. I lost my mask along the way. They have a really cool project and a really great example of shared investment. So if you want to learn more about the process that they took to get there, we worked really closely to thinking what that could look like. So I highly encourage that. Okay, last one, I want to invite up Alex, Chris, and Hinaro from Underground Ministries. And they're going to share about their project, Underground Healing, Prison Reentry, and Generational Strength Among Gang-Affected Communities.
I'm nervous. 10 years of prison and 6 years of solitary confinement has given me, or introduced me to my best friend, which I call anxiety. So I'm really feeling it right now. A lot of times I feel out of place, but today I feel I'm in the right place. Yeah. Thank you. I like to start with my vulnerabilities, because if I'm able to do that, then I know that I'm speaking from the heart. So we're here representing Underground Ministries. My name's Alex Sanchez. I'm the lead reentry navigator. I'm here with my brother and colleague, Renato Sanchez, and our friend and executive director, Chris Hoke, and Tony, who is another navigator with us. So what do? We do prison reentry, and we want to share some of our story on how we got here today and how we're developing and have developed our new project with the North Sound ACH. So thank you. Our journey started 18 years ago, where I met Chris Hoke in the Skagit County Jail. I was broken, had a lot of trust issues, and he came in, wanted to get to know me for who I was, and so I said, I'm gonna trust this white guy, I'm gonna do it. So I embarked on my journey. It didn't stop there. In and out of prison, in and out of addiction. You can see the timeline right there, and got released 4 years ago, and now we're doing father trips to Utah, and that was about 14 years ago, right before I caught my prison sentence. I was in active addiction, active gangs right there. He came to visit me, and we decided to do some push-ups.
That's the equity icon. That's when I hit air. Folks like Alex really invited me into kind of the underground of Skagit County that has lots of posters of birds and tulips, but they invited me into their lives. They invited me into a lot of the wounds and the impacts of our agricultural community and a history of racism in this county. And they invited me into this world. Many folks were not just released into Skagit County out of county jail, but county jail is the mouth of mass incarceration. And those courts swallow many of our youth, men and women, and they go into human landfills across the state called prisons. And so it was through letters and traveling and visitation that I got to know a lot more folks that wanted to not just get out, but really plan their escape, which is what we call reentry. Just because the gates open doesn't mean you're really out of the bowels, out of the underground of the mass incarceration system, of disenfranchisement, community barriers. So we started the first gang-affected focus class in Washington State Department of Corrections, and started planning reentry long ahead of release. Now, Alex, when he came home, was also going to the college, Skagit Valley College, which has an amazing reentry focus, where Hinata was going to school and Alex as well. And thanks to some funding with Commerce, Alex became a reentry navigator, carrying out the same work with more folks to repeat some of your success.
Yeah, so as you see in the picture, just putting together a reentry plan, tackling barriers, both external and internal, so what can get in the way. And internal would be what's going on up here and in here, and external would be getting driver's license, doing tattoo removal, helping the men and women buy purchase cars when they get their employment. And then we have a program within Underground Ministries called Underground Employment. Started with Fidalgo Coffee, and now it's several employers, and that's me on the right when I first got out, trying to figure myself out.
We also found that coming out of the underground, we use the image resurrection a lot, which kind of has its own history, but it really means coming back from the dead and unburying our community. And part of that is not just removing the barriers, employment, housing, resources, etc., but really enjoying a full life and really re-entering a relationship with the land and being part of the land of the living. So we've been doing a lot of tree planting, folks wanting to connect with their kids, going fly fishing. I was surprised how many folks loved fly fishing. And then coming together for softball, and Hinado is a real community convener. This is where Hinado really entered our work and took it to the next level.
Hello. I think putting things together, building life together, playing softball, bringing just everybody and their families together and building life. A lot of these people never had that chance to live a good life. You know, they went from childhood, teenagers, trauma, gang membership, and prison. So getting out, we help to build life and build a good relationship with their family. And cooking is my passion, so bringing that to them is something, bringing everybody a sense of being at the table at the same time with love. This right here is our baptism. You know, we decided this is part of our healing. Let's get baptized. You know, even though we're a faithful organization, this is just by choice, and our choice was to wash our sins away. And I still go to the river and say, there go my sins, you know, but this is my healing.
Shout out Kevin.
Shout out Kevin for being there with us. Building a relationship, going fishing and connecting even with representatives from our region, Deborah Lakanoff, just building that relationship and noticing and recognizing our native people around this area is amazing.
Yeah, so upon graduating with my degree in human services and working with the team, I was able to do more than just reentry. Let's get together, let's celebrate in a different way. So I created Underground Healing, and those are men and women and their kids coming together for a fellowship and being together in a group. And I was told my whole life, you need to change, and I didn't like that. I always had a good heart. Why would I change that? I needed to heal. So we started this healing journey together.
So we've learned from Alex and a lot of the leadership that's been really leading the way that healing happens in community, but healing also needs to spill into the community. It's not just an internal and individual experience. And so one of the manifestations where the gang realities surface in the community is, unfortunately, when there's violence, then it makes the news. But also, I don't know if in Skagit County many people see tagging or gang graffiti. This is just a block from our offices. So we thought, just before we start a big program, how can we at least take care of our immediate neighborhood? And we partnered with Skagit Art Preschool and with the Episcopal Church, and a lot of the guys are like, man, this is cool to have like men home from prison partnering with preschoolers. Normally we're trying to protect the preschoolers rather than seeing that this is part of our community. We can partner together. We created art together and put it up on the fence. And then this kind of community voice where it comes out of the underground, out of that silo. And these men and women are speaking to judges and lawyers here, partnering with Skagit Legal Aid, talking about the reality of legal financial barriers. And so their stories are becoming part of the training of folks in the legal department, which thrills the hell out of me. This is one of our retreats in the mountains, and this is what gave birth to what we want to be doing with the North Sound ACH, which is, it wasn't just men coming home from prison through our reentry program, but Hinado started with Tony, a program that many people say coming home from prison out of gangs, hey, I want to reach out to youth, but then they just get buried in all the complexities of just starting their life. Hinado with Tony and others have built our Journey Youth Empowerment Group, reaching out to gang-affected youth. And so while Hinado's been building that, he said, hey, what if we brought some of those youth to the retreat? And I don't know if you want to share how 3 generations got involved in our retreats.
Yeah, so building this program, taking the reentry program at the college, graduating from the human services program, and then being from Underground Ministries, we created a youth empowerment group, helping these kids live life. They have to be kids, you know, not grow up and just in trauma. So going to this retreat, took some of the kids, plus some of these men coming home from prison, they brought their kids. So we're trying to break that generational cycle of trauma. That's what we're trying to do. These men right here have kids. Nobody's ever taught them how to be a man, let alone a father. So how can we as a community bring that, to them and create a relationship like all these partners that we have up here, Northwest Credible Messengers and others around that there was, just remember, there is power in unity. And that's what we're here for. Thank you. Tony. This is Tony. So Tony's part of Underground Ministries, and now he's a mentor for our journey.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, all three of our projects, for presenting. And if you want to talk to anyone else who's worked on a project this year, if you got a project, can you raise your hand so folks can just see all the work we've done across this region? Yeah. It's pretty incredible, the work that's being done by all of you and the amazing ideas, but I also really want you to meet the committee that reviewed your projects. And we had such an amazing group come together and talk through these and think through ideas, and just had a really wide variety of expertise and experience and representation. So I have been doing this work for the last year, but I'm so excited that we are expanding our team. And we have hired Cynthia Andrews as our Innovation Initiatives Manager. And then you all also met Keiko McCracken earlier. So many of you have met them already, but they will be very involved with projects going forward, and I'm super excited to be passing on this work to them. They're both just super incredible and smart and wonderful people. So I'm gonna pass it on to Cynthia now, and she is going to, we're inviting up a few of our review committee members to tell you about their experience in the process.
Thank you, Nika. Good morning, everybody. Oh, is this great already so far? Yeah. Absolutely. So my name is Cynthia Andrews. I'm the Innovation Initiatives Program Manager here at the North Sound ACH. Keiko is my colleague, and we're working closely together, and she is the Innovation Specialist. And she is also our timekeeper. Many of you may have seen I know you did see the video, and that was me in January talking about being a partner, because I was a partner with another organization, and I really, really loved what happened. And Liz, I really loved the cohorts. I had a good time. Being a partner really helped me. It centered me. It helped me to know that there were other people out here doing the work. I was a DEI professional at a nonprofit organization, and it really did help me to understand that there are people who thought like me, and there were people who didn't think like me. We all came together and really wanted to do this work and do it well. So that was really great. And so now I'm on staff. And I used to say, this place is too good to be true. But I have to tell you that it is true. Like, people are really trying to be innovative and trying to do what they can to serve our underrepresented and our marginalized communities. And so, yay, North Sound. So you got to hear some of the programs that were funded, and now you get to hear from some of the review committee members. So come on up, why don't you guys have a seat here? So as Nika said, the review committee came together. They spent about 4 to 6 hours a week reviewing the applications, the proposals. They talked to each other. They wanted to make sure that the proposals lined up with the principals of the North Sound. And so they invested about 9 months of their time to do this. And as you see, there were 20 proposals that were funded, and we're super excited. So Nike and I had the opportunity to meet with every one of the review committee to talk about what went well, what was challenging, because we're now working on, as Liz says, 1.5. I'm hoping it's 2.0 for this new cycle. But we want to do it well, and we want to be able to do what we did, was bringing in community voice and being innovative and really making sure that the work continues. Now most of the folks here and on the committee, they belong to an organization that is part of the ACH, part of the Collaborative Action Network, but they served as individuals. They did not represent their organizations. And so they really learned a lot, I heard, as people, and we're gonna hear from them right now. So what I'd like to do is have you all introduce yourselves, your pronouns, and give us the reason what inspired you to apply for the review committee.
I guess I'll start first. Hi, everybody. My name is Kima Toze. My pronouns are she, her. And I found information about the review committee through the newsletter. I had been a part of the racial healing convenings back in 2020, and I was just like so happy there was a space for people of color to really just talk about the hardships that was going on during 2020. And then so I just was looking on the website, found this information. I thought, let me just throw my hat in the ring and let's see. I was really inspired by the equity lens that North Sound ACH brings to their work. That's something innovative for me, and just being a part of other types of groups that work groups and things. This work is really different, and so that made me want to be a part of it. I have never, I'm a social worker by trade, and I'm interested in like grant writing and proposal writing, right? So I can have a seat at the table to really make change in my community. And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for me to sit and make decisions and hear what the community is doing that's really moving the work forward. And I just wanted to be there as a community voice. And then lastly, it was great to just learn, what do proposal committees look for, right? And how do you write a proposal? That information I had not known before, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to get all of that experience, as well as be a part of a community doing some innovative work.
Thanks. My name is Mike Hilly. I'm the Emergency Medical Service Manager for Whatcom County, paramedic for 30 plus years down in King County. And I will say my experience with the ACH has been very rich. I actually got involved in this when the state first rolled out this idea down in Seattle, and people like me looking to advance health systems, if you will, thought it was a big money grab, which was quite the opposite. It was not that at all. And this last 5 years, especially here, has just brought a lot of leadership tools for me, a lot of leadership ideas to spread out in the community, find alignment, and it really opened my eyes up to all these other areas in the health sectors that really affect EMS. I say this a lot, emergency medical services is the eyes and ears of public health, and we see things out there a lot, and we see these health inequities. And so my original interest was developing and enhancing our community paramedic programs, community health programs through EMS. And this experience would provide a super big richness for me. I'll say when I got first involved in the review project, just as one of the long-time partners with the group, it looked like granting to me at first, which is not what it was at all. And so a lot of my head went to this idea that, we're going to be passing out grants, which was nothing. This was an incubator for ideas that can provide a lot of changes in the healthcare system, and just by the fact that we have so many folks in this room from so many sectors integrates that, and it brings just that richness to at least my life and my sector of being a paramedic for so many years. So really enjoyed the process. I've loved sitting on the review committee, a lot of long nights on the couch kind of figuring out what this is about, and I'll finally say that it is really great to see on the back end of what all this came around. These last three presentations, we didn't know that much about those organizations. and to see what has come out on the back end of this seed money, if you will, this little influx that get these ideas going. It's just fantastic. So it's been a great rich for me, and I appreciate being a part of the panel.
Thank you. My name is Elisa Lopez Castor. I am a nurse practitioner with history and emergency medicine, mental health, as well as now addiction medicine. So I signed up to be on this committee, and I've learned and value each member of this committee because I feel like everyone has brought a special part and opened my eyes to different parts of their community as to what the barriers of care are, and there's multiple. And so it's been a very enriching experience, both on a professional level as well as a personal level. I've learned enough from my colleagues here that I've been able to take it back into my practice, as well as take it back into my community and share with my other medical colleagues what I've learned and what I've gained and what I'm seeing in the communities. To touch on what Mike was saying about these projects that were presented today, I am overwhelmed with emotion. It's so exciting because we're only going from a written format of what we envision this project could be, and to actually see the pictures and meet the people who are on the pavement doing the work in the trenches every day, making our society better as a whole and our community better. I'm very overwhelmed, and I want to tell you, kudos to you and congratulations. What a great thing.
So what inspired you to apply for the review committee?
I think probably being in the cohorts, I was able to, the position that I formerly had, I was able to actually participate in 3 of the, do we have 4 cohorts? Because I was in all except for 1. So I was able to have a dabble in a little bit of each of them, and to meet the community partners and work in collaboration and just generate ideas. That was really inspiring to me, and to hear what some of these projects were trying to come to life and collaborate with other community members. That was the biggest thing that I was like, I want to be a part of this. I would love to see these projects that people are being innovative with and literally seeing. I felt like it was a great opportunity to actually see the dial move.
Fantastic, thank you.
Good morning. My name is Beverly Porter, and I work at the ARC of Whatcom County. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I have been a part of our agency, the ARC of Whatcom County, as an advocacy agency for people with developmental disabilities, has been involved with the ACH as early as we could become a partner. But being able to be on the review committee gave me an opportunity to learn a great deal more. And as a parent and a person who is autistic, who has autistic adult transgender family members, I was able to bring those pieces as well. We represent, in so many ways, all the intersections in our communities. And from the very beginning with ACH, even though we have principles and guiding principles that we're working towards, we will always have to continue to hear a lone voice, to provide an opportunity for a lone voice. And so I wanted to be able to listen to those voices as well.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have a couple of questions for you all. And hopefully we'll be able to get some from the audience as well. Going to try to, Keiko's going to keep our time. That's how much time we have? Okay, we're good. Okay, so first question. What were the differences you noticed in North Sound ACH's approach to the funding process compared to your previous experiences, and what aspects of this new approach stood out to you the most?
Since I have the mic, I'll go ahead.
That would be great.
So this was very much not a traditional, not a white supremacy foundation sort of approach to budgeting and to the support of collaboration. I don't know if any of you have followed, there's a disability advocacy person called Alice Wong, who talks about access is love. And what I saw in this is that budgeting is belonging. That's really what it brought home to me in this process.
What I saw that was different, first of all, in experience in writing or reading grants in the past, you know, they're usually 50 to 150 pages. I felt that the Northtown ACH did a really nice job in the actual project questions, and they didn't put us into a box as far as the project proposals. It didn't have to meet certain criteria besides being in alignment with the ACH values. I thought that was just, I've never seen any type of process like this before. By not having those stringent boundaries, I come from healthcare. I mean, that's like next to military, pretty close. So not having that and thinking of all the innovative ways that we could really make a change was so exciting. And so kudos to North Sound for that. We definitely, I don't want to say everything was roses because it wasn't. We definitely had some pitfalls and we had some questions and we weren't really sure on certain projects, but overall, it gave us the grace to be able to do the best that we could as committee people to come together and make determinations based on how we felt the funding could best benefit the community and those the most vulnerable, like what you were saying.
Yeah, thanks. I'd add to that too. I've never worked in private business before and always been in public service, and a way to fuel some of these things that you want to get done in government is to get a grant, you know, from somewhere in the government. And even with the last grant we got from SAMHSA, you know, that was a 40-page deal, calls every week for monitoring the money, et cetera, et cetera. And I think the biggest change and a difference in this process was that we kind of prepared for 5 years for this. I mean, the cohort work that went ahead of all this, and I think, and at least for me, I was wondering, where is all this going? You know, where are we taking all this? And it really kind of culminated to this, which was not only just alignment, but a framework and understanding of what we want to do with these available monies. And so when we saw these projects came in, it didn't fit a grant box. You know, it wasn't a checkoff. It wasn't a grading system. It was, does this match the values that we think the ACH would like to push out? And does it make change in the system, especially for all those subparts that we talk about? And yeah, we had some tense conversations. I learned a lot from my colleagues here. Ara, thank you so much. Mario. I mean, the learning and the growing that went with this came from people that were brave to have these voices out there, and it changed my mindset in a big way on how this money was pushing out. So I think that was the biggest difference from my perspective on, you know, how this sort of works and getting money to where it really should go. So.
Yeah, I would echo what everyone on the panel has already said. What I would add is the application was not, it didn't look very daunting. I've seen other applications through the county system, and it does create a barrier for people to want to even apply because there's so many criteria you have to meet. So I was really impressed by that. And also the fact that that I was, as a community member hat, I'm wearing my community member hat, that I could be a part of that. You know, a lot of grant writing or grants at the government level, you have to be in a position, there's all this hierarchy. And the fact that I can just, you know, I can apply and say, hey, I'm just representing myself as a community member who's engaged and wants to make a difference, that I was selected. So that made me think this is a great place to be, so, yeah.
Fantastic. So hold on to that, and you can go first with this question. So what highlights and insights would you offer before stepping into an environment rich in diverse experiences and expertise like the review committee? What aspects would you consider to be both rewarding and challenging about working in this group?
You know, for me, I think because I wasn't wearing, I always have my social work. That's a part of who I am. I have that social work value, social justice is a part of my upbringing in terms of my education. But the fact that as a community member who's concerned about where things are going with my community, I had to remember that I bring value in that voice, that I have something to add to this conversation. Sometimes you get you start to feel like, what can I really say, you know, from that voice? But it's power in your voice, regardless of your position. And so that helped ground me in the work and saying, I'm here and I have something to add. But also it helped me realize there's bias all over, like we all carry bias. And so going into this experience, I had to realize what sort of things, what sort of biases am I bringing to the table that maybe I'm not even aware of? And also exposing myself to other people's experiences that maybe have been on grant review committees for many years or have no knowledge of that at all. So it's so diverse in the folks at the table that I had to just remember what I'm bringing, how valuable that is, but also being open to others' experiences and differences. And the challenges around that would be just remaining open, because you know we all think differently, we all might not agree on something, and it's not about that personal aspect of that. It's really, we're doing this work and the community is trusting us to do this, so let's refocus on why we're here, not so much of this person may not like what I have to say, like leaving that behind and really just focusing on the mission.
Well, yeah, I'd say who wouldn't want to be part of this? I mean, you get to reward some money out, right, for these great projects, and I actually felt really honored to be able to sit on that board from that aspect. And yeah, it was a lot of work, and to, not to repeat too much, but you have to really go in with an open mind and an open idea of what this is all about and take it all in. Have to be very patient with listening and understanding. I know sitting on the couch at night looking reviews, I was going through websites, organizational designs, you know, who's running the place or what is the background on this stuff. And so there's a little bit of background and understanding that and don't take this the wrong way, what you're seeing on your social media is not face value for what the organization is actually going to. I point to the Underground Project, for example, right? What a deep and complicated project that does a lot of great work. And we didn't know what that was about in the beginning of it, but we had to dive into it and talk about that and learn it. And I will say some of the challenges, actually it was just time for me. You know, just with everybody having a busy life, you know, you got to get that time in and really devote some attention to it, because it's easy to go through this, the project design and go, oh my gosh, well, why not do that? Why not do that? Of course, that seems simple enough. Why wouldn't you be doing that already? But there are pieces of those projects that you pull out, and you want to make sure that they are supporting that whole thing that we're talking about here. So, but for me, it was very rich in that aspect. A lot of time kind of went to that, but once again, our collegial conversations, we had some great conversations in that moving forward, and actually created some great friendships too. But yeah, so yeah.
So I'm going to kind of focus on, I feel like Mike and I are kind of, when we first started the journey, you know, it was like, well, you can't treat or teach old dogs new tricks kind of thing. And we've been in healthcare long enough, you know, so verbiage of equity lens and inequity bias. Those are things that are like hot probably for the last few years, but when you're on the floor and you're working in an acute facility, care facility, really those are not stopped and thought about. Like, is this really equity? You know, is my care really going to be equitable? So for me, I really walked away with so much new knowledge, and yes, I went into this committee thinking, oh, I can help with the healthcare aspect. I walked away so much better, being a better provider than if I wouldn't have done this project or been on the committee. You have to, when you sign up for this committee, you have to be aware of where you came from, but you also have to be open to understanding where the others in which you serve came from as well. And there were several examples that you would give us from your community, because you know, I'm from Snohomish, he's from Whatcom, right? So when we were reviewing projects like in the San Juans, we relied on other committee members who actually knew the vibe of the San Juans and the barriers of the San Juans. So many of these projects really did not, they were social services more than medical. And so then I would turn to you and you know, and it was, you will walk away a better person, I can guarantee you, after reading these projects, because you know that they are really going to change lives. You know that this funding is going to groups who really care. They're in the trenches daily, they walk the walk, they don't just talk the talk. And if you have the opportunity, if you have the time, I highly recommend that you sign up for this, because it's a life-changing, not only for your community, but for yourself as well. And thank you, Miss R. I miss our groups. We haven't been meeting like we normally do, and it's very hard, because you do form these friendships, and respect. Every single one of these members deserves the utmost respect, because they care. You know, they volunteered their time, and they are enrooted in their community, and we want to be able to support those of you who are submitting these projects. We want to be able to support you, know that we hear you, and know that we see you, and we know you're doing great things out there.
Thank you.
So highlights, insights, and challenges. I can let you know that when I first joined this committee, I really thought this was a way for, coming from a small agency, for us to have involvement and support in that larger process in ways that maybe I couldn't make a proposal from our agency. The challenge that I think everybody shared in some way is getting over yourself. We've all been socialized and indoctrinated, and I can tell you the first thing out of my mouth is what my mom would have said, and then that next thing is what else I have learned. And so one of my challenges, personally and professionally, is being able to write criticisms or even write objective comments. So looking at the projects and then writing about it before we got together to meet was a challenge for me. And so I knew that, and I knew that I was going to need to come to the conversation to be able to share my perspective and my ideas, as well as hear others. So that's, you know, it's personal, but it's professional. And so thinking about how you communicate best and how you learn best, knowing yourself. Absolutely. But I am really delighted to have gotten to know these folks more too.
Thank you. You guys actually all just answered the next question I was going to ask you, so we shall move on. So how has this experience on the review committee affected your understanding and relationship with the North Sound ACH? And did anything new arise or evolve during the process?
I would just tag on to my last comment that I hadn't thought that our agency was in a spot to collaborate and to make movement in Medicaid transformation, because we're a small agency and we're just in one county. How it's changed my perspective is recognizing that we can work with other folks in ways that maybe aren't financially sustaining or supporting, but we still are doing those, and we can build on those. So that's what I would add personally and from an agency.
What I would add is, in looking at the North Sound ACH values and mission, I feel that one of my favorite things about North Sound ACH is inclusion. And a drive for the ACH is to make health, not health care, but health, acceptable to every individual within our communities. And so for me, being on this committee, that is something that I really kept in the back of my mind this whole time, was inclusion. How are these projects reaching out to anyone within the community? how are we making lives better with this project that we're reviewing? And one other point that he's not up here, but his name is John. And I don't know if you're here today, John, but sitting on the committee, he was a committee member, and he has a lot of great history and background in grant writing and grant reading. And he, with these projects, brought something up that I really hadn't thought a lot about prior to, and that is, okay, let's look at these budgets. Are they acceptable? Are they realistic? Let's look at sustainability. You know, just by saying, oh yeah, we'll probably try to get some grants here or there. We want everyone to succeed. We want these projects to succeed. So in case for some reason down the future we don't have ACH funding, how can we know that this project is going to be able to sustain itself after a year to 2 years? And so, but again, that, you know, when I was reading through the projects, I really didn't think much about that, but we had somebody else's eyes on it that was like, hey, I was just wondering, what do you think about this? And like I said, we all learned from each other so much. And so I wanted to point that out, and I wanted to point out that when you are on the committee, it's essential that you know what the ACH mission and values are. It's on their website. And just to be able to review some of these projects and just make sure that we are in alignment with those values.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I would say, my experience coming to the ACA, and personally what it means to me is I know I brought a lot of baggage to that originally, right? So EMS is kind of sits differently than many more public health program services, outreach, if you will. So for me, this is kind of a cool overhead leadership group for human services that doesn't have the government spin on it. And when I kind of figured that out, it gave me a lot of tools to navigate a lot of these healthcare system issues which were, you know, coming into the EMS life in a big way. And I ad nauseum probably say this, but for many, you know, our EMS patients are the only primary care provider they've ever had, right? They don't have the transportation, they don't have the education, they don't have the resources to get that care they needed. So we find EMS pointing people to these places where so from my perspective, it gave this larger umbrella to be able to find those services and connect and realize that EMS is a somewhat of a safety net, the last safety net out there. And so this, as we moved along through the ACH in these last 5 years, all of these integrated organizations, service organizations, government organizations came together, and that's really what it brought. So when we got down to looking at, once again, all the projects that we want to push out, it gave me a greater lens on all of that, but most importantly, and as you mentioned, is it integrated? Is it sustainable? Is the money really going to the right place? And every one of those projects met that sniff test, if you will, right out of the gate. So it just became problematic on, you know, oh my gosh, we got more out there we should give. But that was a richness for me, not only personally, but bringing it back to my organization, especially as a regional leader in EMS, of bringing all these EMS agencies along with that and giving them the tools to do what we're talking about here today. So that was and I will say finally, when I looked at all those different projects, almost every one of them had some aspect of emergency medical services in it that I related to, every single one of them. So it was really easy for me to sort of connect that and realize that the bigger picture would help in all these other sectors, whether you're straightly connected or directly connected or not. So, yeah.
Okay, I'll be quick because I see the food over here. So, I would just say, you know, my experience, working experience, has been with the military and military social work and things like that. And we are very siloed, right? Everybody knows the military or veterans community. You have to either be a part of that to know what's going on in there. And so this has taught me how to bridge that. So one of the things that a takeaway is that I invited one of my former coworkers where I used to work to be a part of the committee, to apply at least. And they work with the military. So this is the opportunity to bridge those communities so that we can all know what we're doing. We can kind of like, you know, lower the wall, so to speak, and and really bring people together like this room, like we're all together and this is amazing. And then I joined the ACH network as well. And I remember Megan saying, well, what community are you representing? I said, myself. Not representing an agency. I could do that if I wanted to, but I really want to show, like, as a community member, you can be a part of the change as well, and you have a voice, so.
Thank you. So one quick question that I want you all to answer. As you move forward in this, and you answered a lot of that already, but as you move forward in your life, professionally and personally, what do you take with you, and how are you going to do things differently? Can you do that quickly?
Oh, yeah. So differently would be relationships, the importance of relationships, and I'm seeing that today, how amazing this room is, filled with people who want to do important work. So being a part of that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's developed a whole nother level of leadership skills and openness to all these sectors out here and trying to connect them. But yeah, the last 5 years, especially as a person that went from field experience, field supervision, field operations to deputy chief and to a manager job like this, it just accelerated the skills I needed actually to move change in our EMS system and the larger health system in our county.
And for me, it's more, I hope to stand as a steward for the equity lens. So each patient that I meet, as well as my colleagues, I want to do nothing but educate, educate, educate. And just as you all mentioned, you know, this is the family and the generations until we can include everyone in the education process to stop the cycle. A lot of people fail. And so I think it's really important, and it's important that providers, everyone know this in the community, so share your wealth of knowledge, but also from a provider level, to take those extra minutes that are required to find out a more, and provide a more holistic approach to who lives in your household. Do you have 4 generations living in your household? Let's talk about it. Let's get them in as well and talk about it. And what can we do to help support you to make you successful?
Big question. I continue to learn about power sharing. I continue to learn about equity and inclusion and integration and fairness. And I can tell you when I became an executive director, I was very uncomfortable with that because as a woman, scary having power. This kind of power that is shared is going to disrupt oppression. It disrupts the other power systems. And I am continuing to learn about that over and over again.
Thank you. Hold on to that. We've got a few minutes left, so I would love to open it up if you all have any questions.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really wonderful to hear about your process. My question is about the applications that were denied. I know a lot of groups that are getting into good trouble but don't have the framework and the structure, don't know about budgeting or making a plan for sustainability. And what I see over and over in these communities is that they're not able to break through the gatekeeping of funding without a white broker or a white proximity to whiteness that understands the jargon and the way things work. And so my question is, for those who were denied, who weren't able to show that once this funding is gone, this project will be sustainable, what was the recourse? What advice or where were those folks referred in an effort to keep their projects community-led and community-owned? Thanks.
I just want to say something real quick. I think that is why Keiko and I are here now, because we are able to help those organizations with their proposal. We will make, my goal, one of my goals is to make sure that we are working with those applicants so that they can create a project or program that will be successful. And if it's not what It may not look like what you want it to at that time. You may need more research, or you may need to do something that's a little bit different, which is a planning grant, a planning process, or something like that. But we will work with the organization so that we can help support you. That's our job. Would you like to? Okay.
I was just going to add a quick piece about that's part of why I'm here today, is to build the relationships and connect with folks. I don't know necessarily what you're going to offer to me or we offer to each other, but I hope that by the ACH bringing us together in this collaboration, we can support one another in those projects so that they do move through and so that we do see that strength and sustainability. And I know that's part of, that concern I had initially about judging somebody. And part of that is to promote and encourage and give more permission to relationships and collaboration.
Liz.
I'm just going to add one piece. As far as I know, there wasn't anything that was denied. So really, it's trying to have a committee where their goal is, how can we shape this so that it can be successful and supported, which the committee had no reason to trust when we said that's the way we want to frame this. But I don't know of anybody who was denied. They might have been offered something different to support their work than what they asked for, if that's helpful at all.
My question deals with equity. In operation over the last 5 years of our nonprofit, we've found that equity still has bias in it. How do you work as a committee to work through that that bias that's still in society for the marginalized individuals? And I'm talking, it goes cross boundaries. It's not just racial oriented, but it's age oriented, it's income oriented, it's cultural oriented. All of that, those biases work into inequity.
So I'll take that one. As far as the committee goes, with those equity lines, there were only 11 of us, so that helps a lot. We weren't trying to conquer society at that time. We were just trying to make decisions that were the most equitable from our view, and we were well aware that we all came in with our own set of biases. I would answer that by saying that the North Sound ACH provided us with education, so we would have certain seminars or trainings regarding implicit bias, the equitable lens, and we just had one with North Sound regarding gender bias as well. And I think more on a point what Beverly was saying, we made each other accountable. So when we were talking in big groups about a certain project one way or another, if one of it was a safe space. If there was a committee member that it just didn't sit right, we were all open to hear them. Why is that? And we actually sometimes changed our views as to, I never looked at it that way. You're right. I can see that. I can see how that can be equitable for that marginal population. So I know what you're saying. Out in the community, it's a complete different beast. But as far as the community, or as far as the committee went, we were put through trainings, and the best that I can say is we were held accountable. And that was the one thing we were saying, was be prepared to go into a meeting with your mind made up, and then you need to be prepared to be open to the fact that the way you're viewing something may not be right. And just everyone had the courage to be able to stand up and say their part.
Thank you. I thought I had much more time than I did, and I don't. But I do want to invite you all to have conversations Mario is going to be our last committee member to share how you can become, how can you apply. And I do want to say this, Nika always, she said, we had highs, we had lows, but we came together and did some really cool stuff. So I want to just leave you with that, and thank you. And now, Mario.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.
Thank you, panel.
Thank you. Thank you. My name is Mario Bañuelos, and I wrote it down so I won't forget, so apologies. I'm one of the 11 community members that have led, that have the honor and pleasure of serving on the Regional Projects Investment Support Committee, focused on reviewing projects and getting funding into our communities for the incredible work that you all do. It is incredible work. I would like to take a moment to thank my fellow colleagues. Thank you on this committee, in addition to the 4 that you just met here. If you're able, would you please stand or wave so folks can see you as I read your name? Ara Rael. John Glover. John. Daniela Pereira. Daniela. Kevin Riley. Kevin. Leah Weinman, sorry. And Stephen Sullivan. As we wind down the first iteration of the committee, I would like to invite you all to consider applying to serve on the next committee. We hope to pass on this unique opportunity to a new round of diverse and talented individuals with a broad range of ideas, experiences, and expertise. Y si no sabes inglés, no importa. Este es un espacio inclusivo para todos, todas y todes. Todos tenemos valor. To apply, please scan the QR code in your event booklet and also on the screen. And if you have any other questions about the committee, please feel to talk to myself or other members throughout the day. The North Sound region is filled with remarkable community members, as you can see here, and many out there as well. Thriving in uniqueness and resilience, we are all torchbearers of challenging and tough lived experiences and trauma. You, the Black, the Indigenous, the Native elders, brothers and sisters, the LGBTQIA+, Two-Spirit, immigrant, the non-English speaker, the AmeriCorps alumni, the multilingual, the World Trekker, the Social Justice Knights, the What If Dreamer, the They and the Them, the Allies, the Strategic Thinkers, the Innovators. You have an unparalleled wealth of wisdom to offer. You have stood on the crossroads of adversity, struggle, and triumph. Your discerning insights and lived experiences can serve as the bedrock upon which sustainable change is built. That's what we're doing here. If your heart beats to the rhythm of innovation, the pulse of justice, the seeds of transformation, serving on this committee will be a testament to uplifting the unseen, the forgotten, the marginalized, in championing diversity and fostering inclusivity, guiding vital funding that embodies the beacon of hope to propel our communities forward. Regional Projects Investment Support Committee is an opportunity to amplify voices, dreams, and aspirations of community solutions that are already in community, that hold the potential to invigorate our communities and extend a lifeline to those who need it most. So please apply. Thank you.
So can we just do one more round of applause for these folks? And thank you, Nika and Cynthia, for putting that panel and the information together. So I'm the person between you and lunch. Yeah, but I did want to, because I think that the question about denials just really, it kind of just spurred a couple of thoughts for me. That one of the words that I think got mentioned but maybe not highlighted enough is I just keep thinking about trust. right? That, we've been doing this work. I moved to the North Sound region in June. It was 7 years. In October, I'll have been with the ACH for 7 years, which is just kind of mind-blowing. But part of this was, how does the ACH trust you all with the work? Our contracts have not, I just remember, I think with almost everyone in the first Medicaid waiver, I had sit-down conversations about, like, there has to be a trick to this contract. Because you're used to the contracts that are like, there's going to be a gotcha moment at some moment in time. And we said, no, we're talking about capacity building. How do we build this kind of capacity across organizations? I look at you, Mark, and like the conversations I had in Friday Harbor with every fire chief, the EMS chiefs, the county, sometimes county electeds, like there's got to be a trick to this ACH work. And one of the very first meetings that I had back 7 years ago was with the leaders of the hospitals, the federally qualified health centers, a couple of large primary care practice folks. They took me out to dinner, and they had a proposal. So this is before we did one contract. And their proposal was, like, for every dollar that comes to the North Sound region, they were proposing that 80% of it go to primary care. And there were lots of reasons. Primary care is underfunded, the reimbursement rates are like really, really bad, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember sitting there kind of being held a little bit captive at this dinner and saying, I don't think that's what we're going to do with this money. We were the first ACH in the waiver to do contracts not only with healthcare providers, but with community-based organizations, because we said, can't solve diabetes if we don't have affordable food, and people can't have transportation, and they can't, and we just kept thinking there's something else at play. And I think last year we talked a lot about shared power. How do we do decision making in a different way? And the question was, like, people pitch ideas to me all the time. It's probably like one of the enjoyable parts of every week. But I thought, why should I be the only decision maker as to whether a cool idea gets funded? So that I trust you all enough to let you make those decisions. Did the committee trust me enough that once they made a decision, I wasn't going to change it when I'm putting a contract together? And so this, like, we're learning how to do this. And I'm really grateful for the folks who came on this beta version of the committee, because you probably had a lot of questions about, like, hey, is what I'm deciding is actually going to get carried through? And my responsibility is to make sure that I carried through exactly your intention. And, folks who applied, absolutely phenomenal. And we do have, I think, at least 2 proposals that haven't gone to contract yet, because the committee said what they asked for isn't the level where we think that they are. Now, those folks get to make a choice. Do they accept the committee's recommendation, or do they not? And right now it's sitting with them. And we have a variety of things going on, but it's been pretty phenomenal. I think when I went through and I added up all of the dollars for all the proposals that got funded, and I think I said to Nika, wow, it's been like $4-ish million. I don't know that you all knew that that's what you had done. But that's a pretty phenomenal thing to have happen. And we want to repeat that and carry that forward, because we feel like the ACH, part of our responsibility to continue to build capacity in a relationship in this region. It is the sustainability model that we proposed to the state and the federal government. So with that, we have like one more thing we want to do, and it actually ties ironically with both our work with Children of the Setting Sun and a commitment we have to be looking at the next generation. So Noelani, you're still here, is going to do like a brief introduction to what you're going to see. It's a trailer that like is a little bit amazing and mind-blowing. But I'm going to let Noelani talk about this, and then you all can get up and grab lunch.
Thanks, okay. Hi everyone. Namokwat Noelani Kunsna Eastchan Nuksa Kashhai Kas Kanaka Mauli. Is Komatashoy Tia Ayamitria. Is Komatashoy to the Swinimish for having us in your homelands and in the space of your ancestors, and to ACH for having us all here together. So my name is Noelani. I'm a screenwriter and producer with Children of the Setting Sun Productions. Let's see, grew up on the Nooksack Reservation, went down to Seattle for my bachelor's at the UW, and then went and studied for my Master's of Fine Arts in Screenwriting with my Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing with a focus in screenwriting at the Institute of American Indian Arts in Santa Fe. So I found myself with Daryl Hilaire over at Children of the Setting Sun Productions and have been writing with them for almost 2 years now, a year and a half going on 2. So let's see, the sound, the preview you're about to see, started as a project to address Indigenous youth and the mental health risks they face today. And instead of the typical documentary form, we thought, how do we reach not only our youth better, but audiences in a way that's more intimate and emotional. And so we, with the help of youth in our writer's room, they came up with an idea for a dramatic narrative titled The Sound Now. And so the characters give these positive, transformative experiences out of mental health crises that our youth can model from. Indigenous youth in particular are probably the most underrepresented in the media we consume, the pop culture we consume, and as the first children of this land, I think that's pretty backwards. So The Sound is a dramatic narrative. We've got the pilot complete and are currently, seeking support for a 10-part series. And this is a sneak peek that we promise is worth the wait for lunch. When you're a vocal people that are silenced, and your people don't hear your stories anymore, what does that do to your understanding of yourself and your people? What does that do to your self-esteem as an individual? Storytelling has always been a part of who we are. When we're able to tell our stories, there's healing in that, there's power in that, there's medicine in it. The Sound is the first ever dramatic TV narrative from Children of the Setting Sun Productions. Follows a misfit group of Salish teens as they embark on this epic canoe journey over the summer after their high school graduation.
You coming to that party tonight, right?
You gotta be kidding me.
It focuses on Indigenous youth and mental health risks that teens face today, and a lot of our characters go through these transformative experiences that our youth can, model from.
Hey girls, are you guys gonna paddle with us this summer? Be good for you. Ping pong.
We have Tiss, who's this rebel looking for a cause.
What's this?
I got a friend coming over. He's gonna be buying all this.
He's not coming back.
She's living with the loss of her father and with a dysfunctional mother who's a recovering addict. And so she's dealing with this sense of negligence from parenthood.
Ever think you might just disappear one day?
No. Wherever I go, there I am.
Tiffany's mother, she struggled with being a single mother and falling to substance abuse.
I'm sorry about earlier. Stay and eat. I gotta go.
Tiffany's dealt with that her whole life, and that comes out in ways where she's irrational or impulsive. By the end of the season, you'll see her understand where those feelings are coming from and where to go to address them in a good light, and that is going to the culture, into the water, to the canoe. And then The Sound has Ray and Frog, brothers that were adopted out because they had no family to take them in.
Is that your dad up there? Dude, what a legend.
What hurts us is we know how hard it was for you.
coming from where you came from. And when nobody else would, we stepped up and we offered our home.
Yo, what home? I got more home with Weaver than I had in 12 years with Maddie and Ken.
They're dealing with a lot of identity struggles and belonging issues, being too non-native for their reservation, but too res for their adoptive parents.
So what's your next move?
I'm still figuring it out. I'm still trying to figure out if you're for real or not.
Indigenous youth aren't seeing characters like them in the media they consume. The sound is really important because each of our characters are relatable to them. They're going through similar experiences. There's hope and light in their stories, but there's also darkness that they resonate with because it's their reality. Our characters, they go through this journey of self-discovery and enlightenment and love and grief.
You go out there with that kind of energy, that canoe's gonna spit you right out.
We believe the show will resonate with all audiences across the country and offer a unique perspective. Currently, we have episode 1 done and are actively seeking partnerships to support a 10-episode series.
Back a day in a bottle, living life.
Right here.
Hi, I was just wondering if there's a place to watch the episode or if it's going to be out on a platform, because from what we saw, that was amazing, and I really want to watch it, and I'm excited.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one to, praise our youth, and our whole team are a big part of that production. So right now, the pilot we're using to obviously fundraise to kind of produce a 10-part series that we want full control of. So we're reaching out to our nonprofit relatives and just philanthropists that we know to kind of support this so that we can have full creative control and whatnot. And then once the series is done, which we're hoping we can film next summer, the rest of the 9 episodes, we'll kind of pitch to sell that to a broader streaming platform. We are thinking, our sights are set on some big names like Netflix or Hulu, but that's after we complete the series ourselves, just to kind of keep the story our own and the intention. So, but I know we have our own YouTube page, and so some of the clips may be on there, or maybe some of the episodes, but that's all kind of in the air, and we're fundraising now, so we'll know more in the coming years. But I also, just to mention, the production is just as, or the process is just as important as the production, and on that set we had so many Native youth involved, from PAs to camera assisting, to talent, so many wardrobe, makeup, so that, it's not just about creating this cool film, but the process of exposing our youth to these fields they, may not have the opportunity to otherwise. So just wanted to say that. Also, some of the talent you saw in there, Takaya Blaney kayaked to Klimptu, Monkey Beach, actors from BC, also Stormy Kip, who was in Hulu's Prey, and also, I don't know if you've seen The Grizzlies, but Paul Natariak, who was nominated for a Canadian Screen Award. The elder you saw in there, Rudy, is Sam Bob, who's a recipient of a Vancouver Jessie Award, so the film awards up there. So we have a really talented cast and crew, and there's a lot of potential there. So just wanted to mention that before. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us.
I hope a little bit of our time here this afternoon, for a little less than an hour, is thinking about how do we use measurement as a way to reframe, to reimagine the work that we're doing around thriving. And I'm not sure if the clicker is working, but let me just jump you into what, I just want to say, I'm with Community Initiatives Network. I have David Gibbs and back there who you're going to meet in a second, and Stacey Wegley and Tatiana Maida, and we're so grateful to be sharing space with you. What we just kind of absorbed this morning together is truly extraordinary. truly rooted in relationship, when a group of really diverse perspectives is aligning around values to create change, it's breathtaking, isn't it? I mean, to be in this space, you know, we travel all over the country. People would envy being in a space like this, a healing space. It is, what you're doing is countercultural, really, of what's going on in our country right now. And so we're just grateful to be here with you. So well-being, this session kind of grow our understanding of different ways that we can be measuring equitable, intergenerational well-being. And we're going to look at that a little bit from a global through kind of the lens of indigenous values, which I think are you're going to hear a couple different ideas from Shoma, Dr. Shaha, and as well as Jan Marie Ward, who I'm going to introduce in a moment. They're going to offer some examples of how communities are actually using measurement to get traction. And we're going to have just a little bit of time before things are over for you all to just, what's kind of coming up for you? How should we be really thinking about measuring and tracking and thinking about well-being here in this region as we get more intentional about that? So that's the spirit of what we're trying to do for this next segment. And just as a reminder, a few years ago, several of you, even in this room, started to say, what are our commitments to how we're going to do this work differently? And I think this morning is just evidence of how that intention is starting to play out. And one of those intentions is how we measure well-being and really support tracking well-being. And that work is maybe just now starting to take off, and I think that's really the opportunity that we're thinking about. You know, and how will we, I think what you'll hear about is how can we use measurement to drive change? I thought Michael Vindioli this morning was talking about thriving and moving from suffering, or what did he say? Survivance to thrivance. I'm really intrigued. I wish we had more time with him and just thinking about how we shift those narratives. And we, of course, our friends doing the perinatal work and partnerships was really thinking about thriving. So some of what we'll hear a little bit is how do we measure struggling and thriving and suffering, struggling, and thriving, and what might we do about it to continue to think about how we invest differently, how we invest in marginalized communities, how do we create new partnerships, and how do we track that and make decisions together. So measurement has the possibility for all of those pieces. And as we know, measurement's been used in ways that has harmed. It's actually been used in ways that have been marginalized to groups and masks inequities. And so it's a tricky thing, and I think we're going to hear a little bit around how do we use measurement in a way that is healing, that actually propels us forward. And again, as this quote says, not everything that can be measured matters, right? There's a lot of things that we measure that really don't matter in the big scheme of things, and not everything that really matters is easy to measure. So we're not just talking about numbers, but there are a lot of different ways that we can think about measurement. And we're lucky to have a couple of folks with us. One is new to me, a new friend, I hope. And where did she go? I want to make sure I get everything right. Jan Marie Ward, who is actually a descendant of the San Ynez and Barbarino, California mission Indians. And she is here, and there you are. And she also happens to be the president of the Washington Public Health Association, and she's a senior public health policy and project advisor to the American Indian Commission based here in Washington. And among a number of things that she's working on is really this pulling wellness together, which is this kind of indigenous values infused framework that they're working on, and she's going to share a little bit more about that in a moment. And then as, whoops, I didn't mean to put that slide up yet. I may need your help maybe to start pulling up Shoma. Some of you met Shoma Shaha, longtime colleague and friend. I'm so delighted that she can join us. I think she's coming in from Boston today. And Shoma is the executive director of Wellbeing in the, of We in the World, Wellbeing Equity in the World, as well as the network Wellbeing in the Nation network. And Shoma, among other things, has a real interesting global perspective on using measurement to drive change and measuring well-being and equity at all levels, from global, national, to hyper-local. And I'm going to start with Shoma. We were going to do a little bit of a dialogue, and then we had the treat of Jan Marie joining us. So, Shoma, can you hear us? We're pulling you up, my friend. And so they're going to share a little bit about their experiences and just encourage you to be here, taking in what you can drink in, and then we're going to put you in some small group dialogues. Hey, Shoma. You've been doing a lot of this work around measuring and tracking well-being for some time now, the art and the science of it, and wondering if you could just take a few minutes to what's kind of the art and science of thriving? What do we know? What are we learning? And what are some examples of how communities are really starting to get traction on this?
I love that you're calling it the art and the science, because the biggest thing that I'll say as a group who has been stewarding the process of federal and non-federal measurement of well-being is that the science, there is science to this. We know some things, but we can, the more we honor what communities know about what creates their well-being, the more we're able to predict. So often the science is catching up to what communities know. And so what we've been able to do in the well-being of the nation measures process is start with, what do communities know? What do they believe? So we've just gone through, for example, in the first way that the well-being of the nation measures were developed, which for those of you who don't know, are measures that show what it means for people to have a good life, what the well-being of people means to different groups of people, what the well-being of places looks like as it relates to the vital conditions of communities, of places. And then what the well-being of our societal systems, whether that's a racial or a injustice, economic injustice, and other systems of marginalization or systems of inclusion, whichever those are. What is the well-being of the systems that we've set up in our society? How do those promote our well-being or not, or take away from it? And our ability to understand that from the place of story and insight in relationship to community has set us up often to be able to have measures of well-being that turn out to have substantial impact on morbidity, mortality, both personal cost, societal cost, health system cost that we would never have predicted. Um, and if there's time, I'm happy to share a couple of examples of that, Monty.
I think that would be great, Shaman. I know that the notion of thriving has showed up a number of times. Of course, it's part of the North Star, so it'd be great to hear some examples and maybe even just to double click a little bit on how do we measure thriving, suffering, and struggling and the validity of that, if you don't mind.
That's a great question, and one of my favorite ones, and I'll tell you what we've learned about that. So I love this quote by Maya Angelou, that my mission in life is not just to survive, but to thrive. To do so with some passion, some compassion, some humor, and some style. And I think it takes a Maya Angelou to capture the wholeness of what that means. But part of what we've said is that actually thriving means different things to different people. But if we can understand and have measures that relate to the well-being of people, measures developed with communities and looked at across our landscape of, what do we have ways to measure that and balance how people feel about their lives, because that might mean something very different to me than it might to you, Monty, or that might to a youth who is in college today, or somebody who is in one of our border communities or our tribal communities. So instead of saying that I define your well-being and what that means, it's giving radical trust to how people define their well-being using a tool called Cantrell's Ladder, which is one of the most validated tools out there. It turns out that how people feel about their lives, about their own thriving, is one of the most predictive things that we can ask. And when we pair that with things like life expectancy, we have powerful ways of knowing how people are and what's going to happen to them as it relates to their morbidity, mortality, cost, etc. The well-being of places is about those vital conditions of places. And then equity, as I mentioned, the societal systems is about more than that. So this is that ladder. Cantrell's ladder is the question that I was referencing, Monty, that, it says, imagine a ladder where the bottom is your worst possible life and the top is your best. Where would you put yourself today? Where would you put yourself in the future? Notice it never says, what's your well-being? It just says, what's your best possible life, your worst possible life. It turns out that if you're 4 or below on this ladder today, and you think life is only going to get worse in the future or stay the same, meaning in 5 years, you think you're still going to be at a 4 or below, you're suffering. That correlates with our top 3.5% high risk, high cost folks. If you're 7 on this ladder today and you think life is going to get better, that means you're 8 or higher in 5 years, you're thriving. That turns out to be about 45 to 50% of the population, and everybody else in the middle is struggling. And that is really powerful because it's two simple questions, but it turns out that these two simple questions correlate with morbidity, mortality, and cost. They can be used in real time for risk stratification. They work across sectors. And by asking just a few additional questions, this has been administered millions of times and is actually recommended by the OECD and the national academies as a leading indicator, along with, by, of course, the well-being in the nation measures. We have baseline data based on race and ethnicity, and you can do things like a life evaluation index with the percent of people thriving minus the percent of people struggling and suffering. Here's what's really beautiful is that we can now correlate the well-being of people with the well-being of places, and as well as the underlying reasons that might be threatening people's well-being, like their financial security, their connection to a thriving natural world, their sense of belonging and connection to culture, a sense of loneliness, their sense of trust and safety in their community. And by creating measures that are community driven but highly validated, that relate to what communities have said, that are about what communities have told us is needed, along with existing secondary measures that are out there. The well-being in the nation measures offers a really nice menu of measures that relate our well-being of people to the vital conditions that are in our communities. And what was been powerful about that in the context of the last 3 years is because these were simple, powerful tools that can be used by communities that could easily be adapted to add in questions that relate to what different communities felt mattered to them. As we brought together the Communities Rise Together effort with groups like the Migrant Clinicians Network, who was looking at the well-being of migrant agricultural workers as they were caring for them in the context of the pandemic, or Meals on Wheels was working to reach older adults, or Chromatic Black was working with 10,000 Black artists with Black communities in the South, and the National Indian Health Board was working with tribal communities. Each of them were able to add simple questions along with some base standard ones around the standard ones have things like financial insecurity, a sense of trust, loneliness, et cetera. And really, because we designed this collectively, not just with these national organizations, but with communities across the country, we suddenly had a simple tool to be able to say, what might matter to drive well-being, to put those secondary questions in and build a real-time data system that communities could own and use to drive improvement, to both shape their strategies because they were getting data back in near real time, along with look at long-term community conditions using tools like IP3 Assess to help them see how was going on with their people's perception of their well-being and what was true about their community conditions related to one another. This is an example of one of the communities that we were working with in Pine Ridge, South Dakota, where they realized that they had really high rates of suicide and trauma and generational trauma in this Indigenous community, which is one of the communities that had one of the largest boarding schools in the country. And as Uchedi Wakan, an organization founded by the 37th and 38th generation medicine man, who the same one that brought the Sundance back to Standing Rock, what he knew was and believed was that reconnecting people, youth to their culture, giving them back their connection to culture, their connection to traditional healing practices, to ancestral stories would be protective. And they'd done that already in K through 8 and then needed to go to K through 9. And what they did was they were able to work with their youth to and build ways of putting curriculum back, ways to in the K through 12 schools that help reconnect people to their culture and stories as health and well-being intervention. And to measure that using the well-being scale, they were able to add additional questions that easily related to what they cared about. Like, I feel connected to my culture. I believe I'm resilient to the challenges in my life. I'm grieving the recent loss of a relative, friend, or neighbor. I honor my greatest gifts. I honor my biggest fears. These were questions that youth and Indigenous communities built and could be used in addition to the sort of standard questions that they had. And for Meals on Wheels and the National Councils on Aging that was working with older adults, they quickly flagged that things like loneliness were the major issues. And you can see that everybody knew that economic insecurity was an issue. And by having real time data, like it's food and housing and rent. They could develop vaccine events that cared for people, get people connected to utilities. They could provide and create the services that people needed and connect vaccinations and other health efforts to that. And for Meals on Wheels, they really doubled down on strategies to address loneliness as they began to try to safeguard the well being of older adults. And we, of course, now know that whether a senior is lonely or not has a six-fold impact on disability and death. And you could see that, what was happening with the $400 emergency expense, and people began to put in sources to be able to help stabilize families in real time. I'll just end with this example. In the state of Delaware, they were able to use who was thriving, struggling, and suffering using a simple spreadsheet where they were able to reach out to people, use those two questions to screen, which it turns out that if you don't have hope that the future will be better and you're already struggling and suffering, that's a huge correlation with deaths of despair. Brookings published a study about that. So the Delaware Division of Substance Abuse and Mental Health, in the context of the pandemic, had stratified already who their top 10% of people were, that they were most, not just who was in the hospital or in the emergency room now, but who might be at greatest risk and who might be at rising risk of not thriving. And by using that frame of who's at greatest risk, who's at rising risk of not thriving, they were able to proactively reach out to those groups and began to place things in place in real time. And as they did that, they did things like take over 3 Sheratons and house everybody who was homeless and begin delivering mental health and addiction services there. They worked to divert that incarceration pipeline permanently from booking into treatment in a state that had 15% higher rate of Black and Brown people being incarcerated than the incredibly appalling national average, and began providing peer-to-peer supports for everyone. And I share this because what was exciting for them was as they were doing that, they were screening and they were calling and talking with people, connecting people with what they needed, like unemployment assistance, relief, getting tested, et cetera. They just made it all part of one way of showing that they cared, that people belonged, that they weren't alone. And as they did that, as people got better, they then became people who reached out to others, so that there was this civic community of care that just transcended the state. And what the CDC found at the end of 2020, like a year later, was that there were only 3 states that didn't increase overdose rates. Everybody else, on average, went up by 23%. But Delaware actually was one of the 3 states that didn't increase overdose rates. And I'll just share,
We're running a little tight on time, sorry to have as much, but yeah.
Oh, no, I was just finishing up, Monty,
Yeah, go
just
for
to
it,
say
yeah.
that, just to say that, sometimes we think these soft quote unquote measures don't matter, but actually it turns out what we've learned is that they are some of the most predictive of of the hard outcomes that we actually care about. And I think our ability to trust what people know about their own thriving, to trust the data we have in communities and of our systems is something that we can do together with communities and can use to drive real time hard outcomes.
Shoma, thank you for that. Are you able to hang with us for just a minute? Okay. Well, how about a clap for Shoma for giving us a holistic view of this, and it'd be great to have Jan for you to just come up and share a little bit around what's emerging here.
While she's bringing the slides up. Thank you so much, Liz, where are you, for the invitation to join you all. So just really glad to be here. And this is just really important work, incredible. I'm glad that you're here doing this. It is, there's a lot to think through this process, and I am very much aware of this. And I think that part of it is that each of us bring our own stories and our own histories and our own generational understandings to work like this, because this is deep work. It isn't just, looking at a set of frameworks and forms and putting your head to it. It really is having to take the time to think about, what does this really mean to your own personal experience? What does it mean to your history, to your family's histories? And I think that's part of our work. The Pulling Together for Wellness framework actually started in 2011, that I started working with the American Indian Health Commission, and it was centered around doing tobacco prevention work. We were talking about promising practices that were relevant to tribal communities, and I was very interested in supporting the concepts of looking at what would be potentially funded promising practices. Anyway, one of the things that we heard very early on as we started to look at this is CDC had 10 strategies that they funded. They funded the state government, and then and that pass-through funding came to the American Indian Health Commission to do this work. I do have my slides up now. So, and with that right away, in meeting, we had a gathering, and the gathering was to bring tribes and urban programs together to talk about what needed to be done to address tobacco prevention and cessation work. Knowing that tobacco, and at the time it was particularly smoking, had a substantial negative impact that created very high health disparities among our population. We brought this group together, and tribal leaders showed up for this meeting. We had not anticipated, or we had not reached out specifically to tribal leaders for this event, but they showed up and they voiced their thoughts about this. And here's the big message, is that it's not just about tobacco. It's about emotional wellness, okay? That was in 2012. And with that, we said, okay, well, here's the funding. We asked the department to work with us to influence CDC to give us some latitude, and that's how this work began. Tribal leaders got involved. This framework was created through the guidance of tribal leaders here in the state of Washington. You can see, I'm just going to point out a few things about the framework. You can see the center here that is reflective of a medicine wheel. And in the center of that circle is culture. So one of the key elements is that culture is relevant to all aspects of health. And our health is not just our physical health, but our mental health, spiritual, emotional, and physical. But that's all rooted in culture, because that is the way we live our lives, right? We can't separate ourselves from our own culture. And I know these days, particularly maybe the last decade, there's a lot more conversation about, the role that culture plays in your life, the difference between tradition and culture, and what is passed down to you generationally. For us, for Native people, those things are really important issues. The medicine wheel did not originate from the Pacific Northwest, but it is known by Native people. It is something that resonates. And the thinking was that this is a reflection of that whole health that is, that we all aspire to. It's a a memory of what was, okay? And now we're going pre-contact. We won't have the time to go into the depth of that, but it is about how things were, how we use tobacco. Tobacco is a great example because in most of the Americas, tobacco is a significant medicine plant. And so I love the fact that tobacco guided our way in this learning. So in the framework itself, you can see that down below, in the box below, it says generational clarity. The thinking there is that in order for us to actually be able to obtain this whole health, that there's the healing work that has to happen, that is about addressing historical and intergenerational trauma effects, having an understanding and addressing equity, racism, health disparities, and social justice with an understanding of the social determinants of health. In understanding the connection to adverse childhood experiences, the connection from historical trauma to adverse childhood experiences, and then also lateral violence and oppression. These are all things that were part of that emotional wellness that are critically important to address. Now, I'm going to just share a few other things that are part of the framework that really are about how you go about doing the work. So that is involvement of tribal and urban Indian or tribal leadership is important in order to champion the work and carry it all the way through for sustainability. It's important to engage communities because communities will tell you what works and does not work in their community, right? Having youth and elder voices are critical to really doing that deep level understanding of what's working. Also, traditional healers and the cultural knowledge keepers that need to be included in the process. Now, we're talking about this work from a community perspective, not from an individual perspective. Also, the use of and balance of storytelling and data. The importance of that is that we have the inherent right to our own stories, and we are the only ones that have the ability to know those stories from our family perspective, from the places in which we come from. And then using the 7-generation principle. So I am going to share with you some of the values. I'm not going to go through this whole long list here, but what I'll share with you is that there are vision statements. The vision statements are relative, they connect to the life course approach, starting with babies and moms and dads, to our children, our adults and community members, our elders, and then carry on to our communities, to our environments, and that it's necessary for all of them to be healthy in order to obtain this concept of a tribal healthy community. Again, culture is central to that whole health or the balance of health, and the protection of strengthening traditional values, listening to community and understanding that it is honoring the strengths within those communities are important, and listening to those community members. Also, using the social ecological framework in not just about community environments, but the extension to the land and our connection to the world around us from a perspective of reciprocity. Understanding the knowledge and expertise based upon community wisdom, so thus integrating that native wisdom and Western epistemology and science. One more thing I'm going to share with you, and I know this is just skirting the very basics of this, and I hope that it's helpful, is this concept of 7 generations. And the 7-generation principle is based on your standing in the present, interpreting the world from that lens, as well as thinking back 3 generations to your parents, your grandparents, and your great-grandparents. Bringing the wisdom and the experience forward to today, thinking forward to the future for the health of your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. That's the concept. And I know that there's a 7-generation definition of looking out 7 generations for that vision. That's important too. But this is really about, if we are so fortunate to have longevity of life, we could have the opportunity to actually be in physical presence with those generations. And even if we don't have the opportunity to have a direct relationship with a great-grandparent, we usually know their stories. And we have a responsibility. If you step into that role of a 7th generation, you have that responsibility to connect those dots, to keep telling those stories and bringing them forward as new people are coming in. And that is about sustainability. That's about continuity, and sustainability of the truth about our histories, the facts in terms of what's happening today. And also, I love this thinking, which I wish I could share more with you about it, but the 7th generation, you can see that arrow down at the bottom, and someone said to me, Jan, you made a mistake. There's an arrow, it should just go in one direction. And so it was great, because another Native colleague came up to him and he said, no, it's like that, because they eventually meet. Right? They eventually become a circle, because we know that even if I'm talking about my grandparents and I'm talking about my children and my grandchildren and so on, I'm also talking about my brother, my sister, my cousin, and it becomes a circle, because we're looking out for all of those people that are in our sphere, and that is continuity as well. And I wouldn't separate that out from the land and the connections to the place that we stem from. So that's as much as I have for you in our short period of time. Thank you so much for allowing me to join you.
Thank you.
Woo.
A lot there. Shoma Sinzregar, she needed to keep moving, and I know you just digested a lot of incredible wisdom. So I'm going to change. We were going to do a little bit of an exercise, but I'm just going to invite you in 2s or 3s to just take a minute, and what you've gleaned from hearing from Shoma and Jan Marie, what really stands out for you as this collective is starting to think about how we might be more intentional about measuring well-being. So what stands out for you, and why is this important, or what possibilities are you hearing as we start to really measure intergenerational equitable well-being, maybe incorporating some of these concepts that Shoma and Jan offered. So I'm going to give you just 5 minutes and just share with somebody. Pick either a partner or gets in 2s and 3s, and I'll check back in with you in about 5 or 6 minutes. right. Wherever you are is just fine. Sorry to cut you off. If you can hear me back there. I'm waving to my friend David Gibbs back there in the back. Thank you, David. A couple other friends are in the corner. We have a few minutes just to hear a little bit of what's popping up for you in your small groups. And we have our friend Tiffany, the mic runner. I have one too. So we'd love just to hear a couple comments as we're thinking about how we might measure intergenerational equitable well-being. That would make a lot of sense for this region and the unique communities here. So who has some ideas they'd like to kick us off with?
My name is Tony Cienfuegos. Something that comes to mind for me is just how I was just sharing with my these guys right here, Kevin and George, is how we are born into divide, like being divided in everything that we do, from the foods we eat, from the clothes we wear, from the positions in our jobs, from our own mindsets. We're so divided that for us to come together in an authentic, setting, like with a purposeful intent, as opposed to like what we know where we've been, but more of like getting through barriers together through our relationships and love and support. Yeah, that's what comes to mind for me, is like there's so much divide in everything that is in front of us, that we're putting on, that we walk into, and where we lay. It's everything has a name to it that divides from one another. So coming together genuinely.
Thank you for the examples of what you brought earlier on. And not to try to force this into measurement, but I think, how do we tell stories of the possibility of wholeness and healing and what brings us together, and to be able to track that even, which is not easy to do always, but we are so divided. That's why this is countercultural. What else is coming up for folks? Ideas around how we might be tracking well-being.
My name is Quiniqua. I'm Quiniqua Williams. And I think one of the important pieces of what, I forget her name, what she was up there speaking about, is that we need to be willing to listen to the stories that people are sharing. You can't hear a story, interpret it your way, and then track down that data and put that data down. When somebody is sharing an authentic story and we are listening, that is what we need to be measuring, and not the stories we come up with in our heads. And that particularly strikes me because of my own personal experience as a siloed Black woman. So that really touched me.
Thank you. We so preference numbers in some ways. We tend to dismiss and not the power of story as it's being told by the person who's sharing that truth. How do we do that, more intentionally here? Thank you. What other?
Thank you. I was just thinking that we should be asking the people that we're serving if they feel cared for and if they belong. Because we're trying to change that.
Beautiful. And your name?
Yep. Hi, I'm Michael Villanueva from Compass Health. I'm glad that we're actually having this discussion today about qualitative and quantitative measurements. The reason I think that this is really important is because we need to see the numbers. It's very difficult when you're trying to make some kind of a social change. And so with your suggestion here, if people feel more engaged, what would that look like? You want to see greater populations of people participating in stuff. So determining your key performance indicators of your program is really, really important. One of the things that I'm having a challenge with is finding up-to-date data. What I've been using so far is stuff from the US Census, but that's a little old. And the last census that we had was a little jacked up. I won't go into that one. But that's one of the things here. And so the other thing that I'd like to put out to the group here today is that we're trying to measure change from people that have been living with systemic inequity. Now, if I'm thinking just off the top of my head about what does success look like, does that mean that BIPOC communities are equal and on par with mainstream white Americans? Is that a fair measurement? Because you're not starting from the same space. Another group is working with resources that's already been established for them, and there are other people that have been marginalized and don't have that same opportunity. So I'd like to see if maybe another ACH session could have a discussion about that. Thanks.
Love it. Thank you. A couple more quickies right here, sir.
Well, would that especially in mine, about the difference in the populations. Actually, the metrics should not be generalized. In my opinion, the metrics should be personalized. Each individual has their own unique circumstances that they deal with, and those need to be tracked more than, oh, let's get this cookie cutter idea and just boom and press them into that mold.
Lyndon with P-Flag Skagit, to be named and counted is not safe for everyone. And I'm going to also mention the political climate right now. I remember when under the Obama administration with census, trans people were counted, hot dog. And then the next administration came through and made them pay for that because that happened in the military. And so it's not safe for everybody.
Thank you for that reminder, unfortunate reminder.
Just a comment about storytelling. I think what's come up for me is sometimes the storytelling, the ask is tell me a grand story or tell me a tragic story. And I think what gets lost is the vanilla story, which is 98% of the work. And I'd like to hear more vanilla stories.
Thank you. This was a teaser. There's a lot of challenges with measurement for sure. You named some of them around it's not safe to measure. Measures have been used to mask inequities and injustices. And it's something I think that the whole measurement field, and Shoma alluded to some of that, and obviously same with Jan Marie, there's some creative solutions. The solution is not to not measure. Is how do we do this and how do we tell stories in ways that actually help us propel everybody towards thriving. Some of you have mentioned belonging. There's a lot of interesting belonging measures. Shoma kind of alluded to some. Stacy and I are working with some communities that's belonging and thriving to become the leading measure for all their investors, and they are tracking it with narrative and other ways of doing that. The Other Than Belonging Institute has this new belonging barometer that Liz and some of us have been talking about, how this might be a region to pilot that, how we might really be able to collectively think about integrating some of the incredible work that Jan, Ree, and team are doing with the 7-generation thinking. I love that, the whole circle going forward and backwards. So there's an opportunity for us to get creative with how we start to collect our individual, our collective experiences to move everyone forward. And again, from that targeted universalism perspective, David's going to allude to this. Some of you remember this idea of how do we understand that all individuals and groups are differently situated. And we can't expect to treat all groups the same way. And if we are going to have an equitable lens, it needs to show up in our measurement, our storytelling, our investment perspective. And so there's going to be an opportunity with the SEED Collaborative and some others around thinking about how we might develop that practice here with a targeted universal frame. In the meantime, I'm going to hand it to for a second for a quick promo from our friend Ara.
Y'all, it's getting juicy up in here. So I won't take up too much of your time. My name is Aura L, she, her pronouns, and I just wanted to give y'all, I'm gonna tee this up, but later on today, after our next session, we're going to have some open discussion, some open session, some open space, where we're going to continue talking about this, and I will be lightly facilitating. So keep those gears running, keep those ideas generating, and see how it actually adds on as we go and move into our next session. So I am super excited for that. I will see y'all later on this afternoon, and just keep them running. Keep it going, y'all.
And in the meantime, I'm going to call up, where's my colleague, David Gibbs,
Already
to share a little bit around what the opportunity coming up next. So, David Gibbs, take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Monty. I'll start up here, but I'll probably wander around the room. I do that often. Hello again, David Gibbs, Community Initiatives. And I have to say, without a doubt, North Sound is one of my favorite, if not favorite, places to come. I am still full. Not from lunch, but from this morning. I'm going to steal from Alex. He's not here, but Tony shared this with him that I used his line. I've learned to lead with my vulnerabilities because that ensures that I'm operating out of my more authentic self. Tell Alex I'm going to carry that forward. That was powerful. So this segment right here, as Ara just alluded to, David Gibbs, he, him pronouns, is about an opportunity to continue this phenomenal dialogue, acknowledge and appreciate the fact that you all have set a container of a brave space, a container where you feel emboldened to share your truth, and a container where when you start to stir that up, good things can come as a result, all right? So part of what we're going to look at in this space is not just how do we get to those specific dialogues, but what's been a little bit of an evolution, all right, almost a developmental track that you all are on about the how of how you create spaces that are more and more enriching, enlightening, and value producing for yourselves, because you all are the angels who are carrying this work out. Next slide, please. So it's a little bit of a reminder, but before I even get to the slide, I want everybody to stand. Everybody stand, please. This is similar to what Liz did earlier, but I double checked with her. She said, I think what you're about to do is good and a little bit better. So listen, I'm going to ask you several questions, and you get to respond by sitting down. All right? So question number one, those of you who this is your very first partners meeting, have a seat. Staff and partners, all right? Staff and partners, right? So ACH staff, this may be your first partners meeting, and partners, this may be your first. Those of you who have been with the ACH for a year or less, have a seat. Okay. Check out the room. We're, I think, beyond half. A lot of newbies in the room. So what we're about to do is partly talk about who we've been, who we are now, and who we might become. So recognize this, whether you're new or old, it's kind of good to wrap your head around the context in which you're operating. Next question. Those of you who have been around this ACH thing for 2 years, have a seat. So if you haven't been around longer than 2 years, oh boy, we got the veterans hanging around now. A number of you hanging around still in place. It's the reason you're still showing up. All right? We're going to go one more round. Those of you who have been around ACH North Sound for 3 years, remain standing. No, actually, you should sit down now, I guess. Sit down. Oh, so most of you did remain standing. Jackie, how long have you been around? 18, 19, so almost pretty much the beginning, all right? Thank you. So notice the room. Notice your veterans in the room, those of you who have less than 1, 2, or 3 years. These are folks you can go to and get a sense of. Everyone can have a seat now. So let's talk about the big container. The big container is this thing that you've heard the term, I believe, called a collaborative action network. Now, I believe there's power in words. Words convey ideas and concepts and notions. So you're not supposed to read the slide, but at the same time, there are some powerful notions in the slide. The Collaborative Action Network is a learning, advocacy, and action network. What's the first word in that series? Learning. That's what we're here to do. Capacity building starts with learning. Open to all community members. Some community members? All. Thank you. All community members and organizations seeking to advance and you should recognize this by now, just and inclusive culture and the vital conditions for all to thrive. That's our charge. All of us in this room, that's our North Star. The byline underneath says, together, network members will provide the assets, influence, and leadership for the network. It's a byline, but it's an important one because it is essential to the success of the future of your collaborative action network. And the reason it's so essential is this. Liz and the North Sound ACH staff do not want to be the arbiters of everything. They want to support, assist, and empower your leadership. There's a word for that. There's a term for that. Starts with, is 2 words. A D is the first word, and L is the second word. Somebody gets a cookie if you come up with what's the phrase, the expression I'm thinking of. D and, huh? Distributed leadership. Distributed leadership. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's decentralized. It means the ACH is looking for leadership to emerge, for you to set a table, and for you to be supported by the ACH to make that table real, relevant, and live. Next slide, please. So we've been talking a lot with the ACH staff, and we've been a part of this journey with you. And Stacy, thank you. Stacy put some tremendous graphics together. Our colleague, Stacy Wegley, give her a hand. Here's a key slide right here, because this is the entirety right now of the Collaborative Action Network. You see, it's a continuum. There are 1, 2, 3, 4 segments to it. On the far left, you have peer networking and exchange. Examples are this partner meeting is a peer networking and exchange opportunity. All right? The Salmon People film screening was a peer network and exchange opportunity. All right? On the left side, we have the more less structured, less commitment oriented. It's an event, you show up, you wipe your hands like this, and you go home. Hopefully you carry the knowledge forward, however, right? In the middle, you have capacity building. Tomorrow, I believe it is, there's an opportunity with a group called Catch a Fire, where you're going to learn things that are building your skill sets, your individual skill sets in different functional and areas that are important to you. I imagine you're going to have an opportunity to choose. There's the Network Learning Series, where you've had a series of topical engagements. You come, you say, hey, that's a subject matter I want to learn more about. You go there, you learn, you go on, and you carry that knowledge forward in whatever way you choose to. The next vein there is this notion of something called communities of practice. Sounds very prescriptive, all right? Sounds like you got to do it the right way, this order, this, that, and the other. We're not using the term that way. We're generally saying, in addition to peer networking and exchange, in addition to building skills and capacity, we're going to focus on specific issues and subject matter. Some of the examples we have on the screen are the DEIB group. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a minute. The Well-Being and Measurement group. You've already heard about that, at least as a subject matter, but there's a group that's dedicated to doing that work and figuring out what does success look like, what should we be measuring. So your examples and ideas of how we should be approaching that, that's a group for you to be involved in. On the right side, we're moving to more structure, more commitment. You got to show up on a regular basis. It's ongoing. You're building a network of colleagues and allies. You have the same topical interest area. Iron sharpens iron, you know the expression. And so you're learning, you're growing, and so improvement is a huge part of that process. Then that little arrow on the bottom says spread practice changes, advance adoption of equitable policies, and expand partner-funded innovation. So as you move from left to right, you should be strengthening in those regards. Now, the collective action piece is talking about when the entire Community Action Network has set a target on a specific policy. And you can see in the little small parentheses, a statewide policy or some sort of shared investment. We're going to marshal all of our forces as a Community Action Network, and we're going to drive towards that aim, okay? This is not necessarily developmental in the sense that you have to get from left to right. Are these partner meetings good in and of themselves? All right? They don't necessarily need to evolve because we've got other forums and settings to do that in deeper ways. All right? Next slide, please. So we thought we'd provide you just a simple definition of a community of practice. A group of people with aligned interest, profession, field, or desire who come together to learn and develop their skills and knowledge regarding their aligned interests or to solve a common problem. The big add-on for a community of practice is that, again, in addition to the ongoing commitment, you've got a specific topical area that you're all interested at that table to address. You're sharing your practices. Hey, we did that this way. Well, we did it this way. You refine, you hone, either to improve your own organizational practice or to decide that you want to do something collectively. All right? Next slide, please. Then, again, we're emphasizing the notion and the idea that it's about sharing and it's about improvement. Improvement of what? Improvement of practices. Along the way, you're going to recognize that there's a collective wisdom at hand and at play. All right? Everything's been about peer learning to a large degree so far. Why should we change that format and that model? Common purpose, relationships and trust, shared lived and learned knowledge, shared practice. All right? These are the dynamics of how this community of practice operates. Next slide, please. Now, when you think about the entire continuum from left to right, partner and network exchange, capacity building, community of practice, even collective action, they all share common values. All forms of learning from across the continuum are valued. So it's not like, on the left side is better than the right side or the right side is better than the left side. All network learning is centered on building relationships and trust. All learning centers the value of the network itself. You should again recognize these. Honor tribal sovereignty. Work in place-based and centered around community experience. Reject zero-sum approaches. Endeavor to assure everyone can see themselves in the ongoing process. And then last but not least, all learning and action are working towards, again, the same North Star. Next slide. There are ways that the ACH already knows that it can and wants to support you, all right? These are examples of things that you hopefully already recognize about the ACH in terms of the support that's already offered. This is a very resource-rich environment, and I know, because I sit in the rooms with the NCH staff and I hear how they listen, they want to know what else can we be doing? What more can we be offering our folks? And what other ways can we be supporting them? So build that kind of rapport, relationship, and engagement with the ACH staff. Next slide, please. So now we're going to have a couple of examples. And first up is our good buddy Malenko, who we got a mic right here for Malenko. And
I was invited to provide community engagement training. I'm a Slovenian American, an immigrant, and my expertise, next slide please. Can you go back one? Pictures, this one. I learned not from schools, but doing projects like this with communities, building from the beginning to the end a community gathering place with people working alongside with me. Along the way, I had to learn how to train people to collaborate with me. Has anyone taken my trainings before? One person, you get an award. I hope by the end of the year that there will be many of you going through this training. It gives you tools, next please, for how to anchor this idea of collaborative democracy. How do you make decisions together across the differences? You may be aligned in this room, but out there are all kinds of people. Some ideas are wonderful and some are weird. What do you do with that? What do you do with that dynamic? So, next, please. The importance is that informed participation And that's underlined term here, informed. You need to give me your best. Step into your best angel and share from that perspective. Leads to shared guiding images where you need to go, increased ownership, and that all together those acts add up to collaborative democracy, which is what I believe the future holds for us. Next. I will be here at a table during the open, what is that called? Open space session. I'll give you more information, but basically, the reason I want you to think about community work and community engagement, you have to have goals that are chosen carefully. Not everything belongs to community engagement. You have to have some agreements on ground rules, and you need to have a clear structure through which you conduct these sessions. My hope is, next slide, please, that you will take facilitation seriously and practice it just like you would choose to practice piano or basketball. It does not come automatically. Next. So these are some sessions planned with me in the future. When you come and visit with me, I believe I'll be at this table. I'll give you more information. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Milenko. So that's one example of a capacity building potential community of practice. It's currently a forum and a training that exists that's available to you. You notice I took my voice down a little bit. My colleague said, "You're yelling at them." So I couldn't help it. I told you I was full, all right, from this morning. It's that energy. It's just in you. So we've got a couple of more examples, and I believe, Devin, you are next.
Sure, I'm Devin Nixon. My pronouns on my name tag here are she, herd, which I really like. I don't know if that was a typo, but I don't do anything by myself. It's always a herd. It's always a group of us, so I like that. I'm a family and cardiovascular nurse practitioner at Peace Health. I teach in the nursing program at Western Washington University, but I'm going to talk a little bit about the North Sound Race and Health Equity Alliance, and maybe I should stand for folks back there. Hi, folks. On our lunch break, I talked a little bit with Jackie, and she said something that carried a lot of weight with me. And I've been thinking about that we can't have storytelling without truth-telling. And so I'm going to tell the story of the North Sound Race and Health Equity Alliance and how you all can get involved, but I want to tell the truth about it. Because in May of 2020, the world watched a black man be murdered on camera. And for a lot of people, it was jarring, it was shocking, it was something they couldn't fathom, and they all wanted to get involved. And for some of us, it was like, oh, okay. Folks didn't know this kind of thing happens in certain places with certain people. And so two colleagues of mine, Erica Gadzik, who's a family practice physician, and Ariel Furtado, who is a family nurse practitioner, we're talking about what can we do so that we can learn in community about racism and how it affects health outcomes. And they were making wonderful plans, and this is where the truth-telling comes, where I got brought in. I got a message on, what is this app called? Nextdoor, because they realized, and I credit them for this, that they were doing this work without any diverse lived experiences at the table. And I share this because I have children in the room too, that generativity part. You can be upset and feel as if you're being tokenized. So the only reason someone's reaching out to me is because, oh, we need a blank, fill in the blank. And as much as that could be true, it's also an opportunity. And there's an opportunity to go, well, I've been preparing for this my whole life. Let's do it. And so we had our first conference in 2021, the North Sound Race and Health Equity Conference, total collaborative work, lots of different sponsors, lots of different partners. The Alliance grew. We have a couple of other Alliance members in the room, Dana and Rachel and myself, of course, Erica and Ariel and other folks, organizations who joined in and said, we'll support this. And I can never talk about this work without talking about what I call repping for health equity. So representation, education, and policy, right? So the representation piece, we have a scholarship, the North Sound Health Equity Scholarship. We said we don't want to just do a conference, we want to have a call to action and let everybody take part in changing the landscape, because we know that patient-provider concordance yields better health outcomes. So we have a scholarship, and there's papers over there that you can scan and learn more about or donate to if you like. Because representation matters. We need people taking care of people. And I'll say that anybody who's from a marginalized community, if you become a medical provider, you are an embedded community health worker. You may have letters after your name, but your people will find you, and we're able to help one another in those ways. The education piece is, again, the conferences. The first year we learned together. We learned about the numbers. We learned about health disparity together. The second year we had Dr. Danielson, as a guest speaker. And the third year we had Shoma. So we talked about the science of belonging last year. We're getting ready for our 4th annual conference, and that's going to be next spring, so March. Another reason to scan the paper and get on the mailing list so that you can know when that's happening. The policy piece, that's always tough, but we're learning more and more, not just about social determinants of health and vital conditions, but political determinants and how policy affects outcomes. And so we practice being nonpartisan brokers of health equity information, knowing, in a really polarized environment, how do you talk about things that are important without closing the ears of half the people in the room? You learn about the policies, and you can speak to the policies without getting into the politics. So those are the things that we focus on in the Alliance. We would love to see you at our next conference. We'd love to hear from you. So email, let us know, what do you want to hear about? What should we be learning about collectively? And please, please, I'll say this. I came to Bellingham. I lived in public housing for 7 years. I always wanted to be a nurse practitioner. It was just out of my reach. And it was a $1,000 scholarship that started my journey. And I get to stand here today because people like you all in this room and in our communities gave. So please give, please come, please support us, and I'll be around if you all have any other questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Devin. Beautiful. So, Malenko, Devin, these are going to be open space tables where you can go and sit and be with these people. We've got one more open space topic that our good friend Cynthia is going to speak to. And if we got a mic handy, here we go.
Hi again.
Hi.
So, thank you. I love this topic, so this is good. As everyone, or many of you know, I was a diversity, equity, inclusion practitioner in my position before, and I have been for many, many years, over 30 before I won't tell how old I am. But this topic has been around for a long time. We've been talking about it, we've been trying to figure it out, and not everyone is on the same page. What I would love to do is to invite people who are either DEIB practitioners or those who are very committed to the work to come to the table, and let's have some conversations about how can we create support around this issue, be it from the top down, from the bottom up, or right there in the middle. We've got CEOs and leadership, C-suite folks that have no idea how to support, have no idea what it is, and I see some eyes rolling. They have no idea what it is, and they don't really recognize that it's necessary. How can we support that? how can we support practitioners in your agencies or those teams who are working together for to advance equity in your workplaces and in your home lives? Also, how can we create healing spaces for those practitioners who may be burnt out? It's a tough job. And so I would love for us to come together, have some conversation, and see where we go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you. I mean, do those not sound like three delicious topics? In your packets that were there from the beginning, some of you have them open, you will see that we have a list of the menu of items for open space, beginning with peer networking exchange, capacity building, communities of practice. You've got Catch a Fire under capacity building, facilitation and community engagement training. Malenko, I think that's you, under capacity building. Then under communities of practice, DEIB. As Cynthia just alluded to, food justice is another topic, jail reentry, measuring well-being, regional community engagement for voter access, and then targeted universalism. Monty mentioned that earlier. Yours truly will be leading the conversation at that particular table, kind of instead for our good friends at SEED, you know, Paul and Evan, who are not here today, but you know, we will be working with them in putting together a community of practice around targeted universalism. So for those of you who want to learn, understand a little bit more, or we're really with all of these looking to see where the energy is, looking to see which of these may fall on what level of that continuum we put up before. So community of practice is an option for all of these subjects. You're going to start the dialogue to gauge what level of interest there is to see where you may fall on that continuum, if you will. Continuing on, partner initiatives and alliances. The Futurity Alliance will have a table for open space, and then Devin with Race and Health Equity Alliance as well.
My name is Quiniqua Williams, and I have Michelle here with me, and Fern was our note taker. My amazing group here, we had a great conversation, and Lyndon had this amazing idea. I want to give a shout out to Lyndon. He said that belonging should be the big B because it's the umbrella term under which the diversity, equity, and inclusion should fall under. It should be the central thing that we focus on, and I definitely love that thought. At any rate, we had a discussion about how DEIB can be sustainable, and some of the things we came up with was one, by first having leadership development around hiring DEIB professionals, because we are seeing DEIB folks falling to the wayside. We want to establish a standard of CAN members. create a network to support trainings, create a safe space for all to ask, and proximity was really important. Having access to people who have lived experience can sometimes create that 2-foot drop from our head to our heart, and hitting people where their heart is where you can make those connections to affect change. And we want to create opportunities. And then there was this thought of creating a resource list of collaborators to partner with each other and provide deeper insights across multiple cultures, ages, and different things like that, different intersectionalities. And then 7, we came up with incorporate support measurements for more accountability. So thank you all for hearing what we came up with, and we look forward to sharing this space with you more. One thought?
Can you say what a CAN member is? CAN? What does it mean? Yeah, what does CAN CAN?
Collaborative Action Network.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, give them a hand.
Huh?
Give them a hand. Excellent.
One final thought. We will be convening as a group to figure out how we can make this thing happen, figure out how we can, Cynthia, continue the work. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Good job, kids. Thank you. All right. All the way in the corner. Jail reentry.
So we started having a discussion on the new jails being built in Linwood and up in Bellingham, and that stakeholders try to shine it up by attaching mental health facilities to it. And so we had a discussion about that, yes, we need mental health facilities, we need substance abuse treatment, but we do not need to attach it to our jails because we cannot have healing and wellness and jails. Yes, hold on, sorry. We need to organize our communities to never throw people away, so I put that up on the board. Why would we give our loved ones to the system and throw them away? We often value property over people. Let's see. Prisons are a direct reflection of our public school systems. How we treat our kids at home and at schools, we teach them very early on that they can be thrown away. Let's see. And when schools do throw our kids away, who is there for them? The streets. So that's how they end up there. Let's see. Yeah, we talked a lot about schools and mandated reporting being a gateway to child welfare and prison system. We should never be expelling children from schools. We should never tell a child that they're not good enough. We got to go deeper into root causes. So why do people steal food? Why do people destroy property? Why do they commit the things that end them up in the system? And I'm going to just throw this in there. I didn't get to say it at the table, but somebody taught me something. It was a social worker that I work with, and he teaches us that we're all born whole. So we all have dignity, agency, safety, and belonging, and trauma impacts those things. And so we should be working to restore those things and not using punitive punishment systems. So I will end with that.
Next, we have targeted universalism and belonging.
We talked about using targeted universalism, break down silos, looking at connecting the dots, trying to change systems, looking at how we can provide belonging and getting people so they were able to listen to themselves and not dig their feet in. We also talked about having a network of people who have the same frustrations and concerns that you have and learning from them. Along with that, some shared learning so that you don't have to be an expert in every single thing, but be an expert in what you are and have connections with people who are experts in what they do. Understanding the alternatives, so if you have an opposing view, how can we discuss it rather than dig in heels and say your way is wrong, my way is right? Creating a system that can expand opportunities and resources. Needing clarity on who are we serving and what are we trying to do. Recognizing there's not going to be one universal project that completes it all. And then can I get the right people with the right questions and build and teach skills with my partners, and then look at the continued insights around the good and the great conversations that we have.
So I'm going to do two things. One is Meg has asked that please take food before you go. And secondly, just remember that we're going to close this room, but then we're going across the way. But I would just love to hear from the three of you, just any thoughts you've got as you're leaving here. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I'm Yuki Yang. And as Liz said, Ideal Option has been part of this work since about 2019. And so we've seen lots of changes. And I've always been very hopeful about what Northstown ACH can do. And seeing all of the brand new faces here and some people that I've been in this room with or other rooms with for so many years, I'm just still so hopeful in the amount of optimism I have for the work that we can all do together continues to grow. And I would encourage everybody to not let today be the end of the conversation. That is the beauty of the Northstown ACH, is that they create this space for all of us, and as the slide said, to be leaders in this work. And I'm looking forward to continuing this work with all of you. So thanks.
My friend, just keep going.
My name is Kevin Riley. I'm with Mount Baker Presbyterian Church in Concrete. And like Alex said earlier, I'm nervous. There's a lot of you. And Liz, oh, thanks, friend. And Liz sent me a text and asked if I would share some reflections for today. And I've worked up 30,000 things to say in my brain up until this point. But the only thing that I can say, my reflections for today, my reflections for the ACH is being a part of this collaborative action network, this network of providers will change you. It will change who you are, it'll change your trajectory in life, and it'll change your organization, and it'll change the communities that we serve. Because we're all coming together with a common mission, and that is to boldly go into the darkness of the people who are still suffering, unapologetically rip them out, and provide them with the resources that they need to be able to sustain and survive and thrive in their life. And if all of us in this room can share in that same mission and unapologetically love, then there's nothing in this world that can fucking stop us.
And so if you recall, we started the day with you all introducing yourselves to each other, and I asked you, what is something that brings you hope? Not to put pressure, being a grandma, seriously, my grandson was going to be here, and I said, I promise I will not embarrass you. But the conversation that I just got to be a part of and percolating ideas coming out of that give me hope. And so I'm just really grateful, Matthew, that you're willing to take the microphone and share some thoughts with us.
Hi, I'm Matthew. I'm Devin Nixon's son. I'm not with any organization. I just graduated high school a couple months ago, and I'm going in the Western this fall. And first of all, I just want to thank you all for letting me be in this space, because that is super important to the work you're doing, I feel like. Not just because it's me, but because, I just got to be a part of a beautiful conversation. And thank you. I just learned the importance today of building relationships with the people you want to work with. And I think you guys are doing amazing work just by being in this room right now. And I'm really excited to see what the Northstown ACH will continue to do in the future. Yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you. Thank you.
And that was a little bit of humility, because Matthew actually has agreed to make a connection between us and a couple of faculty that he worked with, and that's what it's about. Every one of us builds a bridge to somebody else who's connected to this work, so there's a lot of power in that. To close us out, boy, in January we had a song. For those who don't know, Mario stood up and did this amazing piece of music for us that day. And, to close us today, because since I feel like we're not actually closing, but we're just like transitioning from this side to that side and outside, I'm just going to say, the power is to turn to the people that you're still sitting at tables with, share an idea with them. There could be more there to your ideas that nobody has listened to in the past. You can certainly share them with us, but just know that the ACH, most of the time, somebody calls us and says, I have this really cool idea, and we turn around and I call Jackie, or I call Kevin, or I call somebody else and say, are you willing to get together and talk to so-and-so about this work? And so, we're kind of shepherding this network, and it's about leverage. And, how we can do that, it's part of the commitments that you all made to be a part of this collaborative action network. I almost wish that the slide was up, and I can't remember where it was in our slide deck of what are people bringing to the table as being a part of this. And it's you as leaders, you're bringing resources and relationships to this table. And it's what is going to turn this from a project into a movement. And, back in 2017, the Healthcare Authority asked us, how are you going to sustain the work of the North Sound ACH once the Medicaid waiver dollars go away? And my colleagues all around the state wrote these wonderful papers about, I can't remember if there's anybody from any of the health plans here anymore. I know Laura was here earlier. We're going to get the Medicaid managed care plans to pay for all these really cool things that we're doing. We're going to find philanthropy that's going to do this work. And Nicole, where's Nicole? Nicole was with me in writing up our paper, and North Sound wrote up our framing for sustainability is building relationships. We felt like if we can get organizations who think of themselves as separate, looking for money separately, to actually work in concert with each other, this work will be sustainable, because we have no dearth of ideas. And we have better ideas than the federal government has, than the state agencies have. We don't have a good way of filling them with our ideas, but you all have got amazing ideas. And so how we can leverage whatever we can bring to the table with your wealth of knowledge, that's what's going to make this a region where people increasingly feel like they belong, they are seen. A couple of board meetings ago, and I'm going to close with this because it just was a theme throughout the day, there was a webinar with the Othering and Belonging Institute, and it was John Powell and a grief activist talking about how does belonging fit with grief. And some of you know I've had several losses in my family over the last year, so I hop on this call, and the two of them are having a conversation as if they're not on a Zoom call, but they're sitting on a sofa together, talking about you cannot get to belonging without love. Love is at the center of belonging. And so a couple of weeks later, I go to a board meeting, and there are a couple of board members here in the room, and I said, we've got this equity frame and targeted universalism and belonging. We're going to create a set of principles to guide our work so that we are leading with love. And 6 years ago, I think I would have had blank stares at our board meeting. In 2023, I have board members going, yes, you can't do this work without love for the community that you're serving, the people that we're talking about. And so you'll see soon, for those of you who follow our newsletters and stuff, we'll be sharing our principles of how our organization is leading with love. And it means how we treat our staff, how we work with our consultants, how we work with you all, how we see ourselves vis-a-vis the community. And so I'm just so excited that you all are on this journey with us, because the ACH is nothing without you. I mean, there is no accountable community of health without you. And what we want is to just keep growing this movement. So, maybe in January, we're going to ask you all, bring somebody who's a high school student with you, so that we can actually do something with young voices instead of about young voices. And, that would be pretty incredible. So I'm just going to close with thank you. And please join us 4:30 to 5. And then the very last thing that Meg is pointing me to is we do a kind of an evaluation piece. So one more QR code up there. And apparently we're not doing a raffle or any kind of organized betting scheme. But if you complete the survey, we have a gift for you. So gifts galore. You'll get this also as a follow-up email, but we love getting feedback because we're just going to keep making every time we come together better and better and better. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Be safe with wherever you're heading next, and we will see you soon.